Our tale drops us into a reality totally shattered and rebuilt by the awakening. Standing before a literal frozen wasteland, a squad of top-tier awakeners rolled up to the gates. Their marked Death's Lair, an S-class nightmare zone hiding a primordial terror. This was the very first raid to crash into planet Azer, and it had been catching bodies for decades. The front door was literally paved with the skeletons of fallen legends, but today the whole narrative shifted. An absolute beast named Sumin chose to run Death's Lair totally solo. Zero backup, pure unadulterated grit. After an agonizing bloodbath, he actually pulled it off, obliterating the god-level monstrosity lurking inside. But the second he dragged his battered body out the exit, with his HP practically in the red, nobody was cheering. Instead, he found himself ambushed by the exact crew he called his brothers. They boxed him in like hungry predators, pure malice leaking from their auras. One dude immediately started barking, telling him to stop wasting time, and drop the mythical gear he just bagged. Another guy sneered that his run was officially over, sarcastically calling him the savior of humanity, swearing to make his deletion painless if he just gave up. Sumin's entire frame started sparking with erratic energy. The dark truth crashed over him. These cowards literally camped outside waiting for him to do all the dirty work, just to hijack his loot. Had this grimy setup been the game plan since day one? Breaking from the pack of snakes, a blonde guy named Santon stepped forward, unsheathing a longsword crackling with azure voltage. He locked eyes with his former day one homie, totally emotionless, ordering him to cough up the divine drop. He tried pulling the "we used to be tight" card, offering a free pass in exchange for the treasure. Smirking like an absolute villain, he threatened to stomp out the microscopic sliver of health Sumin had remaining. White-knuckling his own blazing crimson greatsword, Sumin violently cursed his own blind trust. He had treated these literal parasites like family, grinding through battles together since childhood, totally oblivious to the toxic venom they were hiding. Now running entirely on the scorching rage of betrayal, he absolutely refused to just roll over and fade out. He hoisted his blade, detonating a massive tsunami of crimson and violet aura from the godly relic, blasting out a shockwave. Planting his feet, he practically begged his fake friends to step up, laying down the law. If they wanted the Ring of Deity, they'd have to peel it off his lifeless corpse, though he bet everything they didn't have the spine for it. That flex of raw dominance visibly rattled his ex-squad. One of Santan's mindless goons completely panicked, screeching to end him right this second. Santan immediately barked at him to back off, warning the crew that rushing in, while Sumin was gripping that Tier 0 artifact, was an instant game over. But right as the tension hit its boiling point, a shadow plummeted from the clouds. Screaming Sumin's name, he snapped his head up, totally stunned, to see a pink-haired girl named Xiaomin diving straight toward him. She crashed into his chest, throwing her arms around him, crying out that she heard rumors of a hit on his life, and flew across the map in absolute panic. Sumin whispered for her to breathe, swearing he had it handled, and that these clowns were basically low-level mobs to him anyway. Even so, a tiny part of his brain kept agonizing over how this ambush squad pinpointed his exact coordinates. While his mind raced, Santan shot him the most sinister, knowing smirk imaginable. A split second later, a paralyzing, agonizing spike tore through Sumin's spine. Xiaoman had just buried a dagger deep into his back, whispering the ice-cold truth into his ear. She was the rat who dropped his pin. Utterly shell-shocked, Sumin locked eyes with her as a sinister crimson magic circle ignited on the wrist, driving the blade. His brain completely short-circuited. Out of everyone, why her? Why did his ride or die have to be the ultimate traitor? Across the wasteland, Entan let out a deafening roar of triumph. Screaming that the final puzzle piece was officially locked into place, he commanded the ultimate lockdown array to fire up. In a flash, a colossal neon-red sigil scorched the sky directly above Sumin, boxing him in. Blazing blood-red chains violently exploded straight out of his stab wound, slithering and wrapping around his entire frame like demonic vipers, totally suffocating his mana. He stared at that cursed brand, instantly recognizing Xiaoman's signature aura. The puzzle finished. She had been orchestrating this fatal betrayal for ages. Santan casually strolled across the battlefield, posting up right next to Xiaoman. Slipping his arm around her waist in the ultimate flex of disrespect, he chuckled, explaining that this absolute lockdown spell was tailored from scratch just to cancel Sumin out, forged specifically to shut down his abilities entirely. Xiaoman drops the icy truth bomb, revealing she was secretly riding with Team Santang from day one. She spells it out. Suman was just a stepping stone. Thanks to his insane 9-star potential, they only kept him around to farm the ultimate god-tier loot. Absolutely shattered by the backstab, Sumin drops to the dirt, letting out a raw, agonizing roar of pure frustration. With our MC locked down and defenseless, Santang barks the command, finish him and snatch the loot. The henchmen close, in weapons pulsing with energy, eager to send him back to the lobby. Right as the fatal strike is about to connect, the terrain violently erupts. A massive bone-chilling skeletal claw rips through the soil, unleashing an absolute flood of undead soldiers that crash direct, forming an impenetrable wall of bone around Suman. He stares in utter disbelief, scrambling to figure out who just pulled off this insane rescue. Enter the mysterious hero, rocking soft lavender hair. A cloaked silhouette touches down onto the battlefield. Suman recognizes her in a heartbeat. It is Yi Yao, the shadow mage, dropping right between him and the hit squad, tightly clutching her heavy staff. She fiercely yells at him to hold the line, dead set on blocking these scumbags from claiming the ultimate prize. Santang just chuckles darkly, brushing off her dramatic entrance like an absolute joke, just another minor inconvenience in his way. He immediately starts boasting about his massive squad advantage, smirking that with dozens of elite fighters backing him up, not even the Supreme Emperor himself could bail Suman out of this mess. The zone devolves into pure madness as Santang's crew collides with Yi Yao's skeleton horde. Meanwhile, the ringleader himself dashes straight at her eyes, blazing with ruthless intent, fully prepared to obliterate anyone standing in his path. But right in the heat of the clash, one of the enemy lackeys screams out a frantic warning about an incoming ambush from the side. Turns out, it is a complete bait, a filthy trick. Yi Yao whips her head around wide open for a split second, and Santang seizes the opening, violently swinging a crackling lightning-infused weapon without a single ounce of mercy. Stuck in place, Suman is completely paralyzed, forced to witness the devastating hit land in agonizing slow motion. With Yi Yao swatted away, Santang moves in to close the curtain once and for all. He mocks our MC, sneering that playing the hero is for fools, and now it is permanently game over. He then violently shoves his glowing neon blade straight through Suman's core, getting uncomfortably close to whisper one last toxic ultimatum: cough up the relic. And there is a tiny chance he gets to keep his player status. But Suman refuses to break. Crimson staining his chin, he fiercely pushes back against the mystical chains in ultimate defiance. He shoots a lethal glare right at the backstabbers, his pupils practically engulfed in burning fury, viewing them as the true monsters of this world. Suddenly, a sinister, terrifying aura of deep red and pitch black begins surging from his very soul. This is his absolute last resort. Suman activates the ultimate wildcard, a total supernova sequence. It is the forbidden god-level skill known as the Chaotic Burst. A colossal shockwave erupts directly from his center, violently blasting Santang and Xiaoman backward as their jaws drop in terror. Once the smoke finally clears, an eerie heavy silence washes over the ruined terrain. Clinging to his last shred of HP, Suman slowly pulls his battered frame toward Yi Yao. He pulls her close, absolutely consumed by regret, choking up as he asks why she would just throw it all away for someone who constantly let her down. Yi Yao merely offers a fragile, insanely gentle smile, softly resting her. She has made her peace. If this is where their journey pauses, at least they are clocking out side by side. But right as his stamina gauge hits absolute zero, Suman experiences one final explosive surge of sheer willpower. His signature blade materializes out of nowhere, crashing heavily into the soil, an ultimate declaration of unfinished business. Holding Yi Yao tight, Suman, the legendary conqueror, makes a brutal, unbreakable promise. He swears that if the universe grants him a respawn, he will relentlessly track Xiaoman and Santang to the ends of the earth and absolutely ruin their existence. The two snakes watch the scene unfold from a safe distance, totally baffled by what is happening, until a wave of sheer panic suddenly contorts Santang's expression. He finally connects the dots on Suman's final play. The absolute madman intends to drag the legendary relic with him into the void. He is pulling it straight down into the unrecoverable abyss, ensuring those traitors never lay a single finger on it, sealing his ultimate promise before fading to black. Zhu Ming throws down the gauntlet. If they want the bag, they better swan dive for it. Gripping Yi Yao like a lifeline, he hurls himself off the ledge. They free-fall straight into a swirling vortex of pure, untamed chaos. Out of nowhere, the ring of Tao Defiance on his hand detonates, swallowing everything in a blinding flash of gold. Everything gets wiped out in a sea of white. His grip goes totally slack. It feels like game over, but then bam, his brain jolts back online. No endless feed, no grim reaper. He is blinking up at a painfully bright blue sky with the silhouette of his old high school towering over him. His brain is completely scrambling while a megaphone crackles to life in the background. Some dude on the mic is hyping up the results for the 127th Awakening ceremony, right here at First Shuangjing Academy. This kid Wang Chong just popped his awakening, but he totally flopped. He pulled an enchanter, a straight-up lifestyle class with absolutely zero offensive stats. Meanwhile, Zhu Ming is just frozen entirely zoned out, while drowning in a massive mosh pit of rowdy teens. He catches gossip flying around about how the Academy's drop rates are absolute garbage this season. Those two words, awakening ceremony, slam into his chest like a Mack truck. A massive wave of deja vu washes over his mind, and the crazy truth clicks. He actually respawned. He is 18 years old again. It is literally day one of the apocalypse. Surrounded by oblivious kids, the memories of this exact moment replay in Ultra HD. His eyes lock onto Wang Chong, the heavy-set dude everyone used to roast. He vividly recalls Wang pulling the exact same enchanter class in his previous life. This isn't some crazy fever dream. It is a full-on reset. Just to verify his own sanity, he mentally calls out the next drops before they even happen. Li Xiang is about to bag a 2-star warrior class. Chen Yu is going to completely brick his role, and Sun Li will manifest as a battle mage. Boom. It unfolds exactly like a movie script. Right on cue, Li Xiang starts flexing and hyping up his new warrior title. Chen Yu literally collapses in tears after securing absolutely nothing right before Sun Li flares up with battle mage energy. Every single detail is perfectly synchronized. Any lingering hesitation in his brain just gets vaporized. A dangerously arrogant smirk creeps across his face. He actually secured a second life. But that smirk instantly warps into venomous fury. The millisecond the blood-boiling trauma of Sun Tang and Xiaoman's ultimate backstab loops through his head like a slasher film. He realizes this respawn is an absolute cheat code from the universe, a master key to tear up the script and serve karma cold to every single traitor who did him dirty. His revenge plotting gets cut off by the entire courtyard losing their absolute minds. Up on the platform, a fresh-faced Sun Tang is mid-awakening, completely drenched in this toxic glowing purple aura. The MC is going ballistic. Sun Tang just unlocked an insanely rare hidden combat class demonic puppet warrior, flexing an absolutely broken 8-star innate attribute. The student body is basically foaming at the mouth, gossiping that this god-tier power scaling is exactly what you expect when you are the golden boy of the elite Yang bloodline. Watching the whole school endlessly simp over his worst enemy, Xu Ming locks eyes with his future killer. His stare is dripping with absolute ice-cold malice, totally drowning out the host praising their so-called prodigy. Out of nowhere, somebody pokes Xu Ming's shoulder. He whips around and his heart literally stops. It is Yi Yao, fresh-faced, glowing, and 100% breathing in her classic academy uniform. You can tell she has been searching everywhere for him. But catching him looking like he just saw a ghost, she gives him this incredibly pure, confused head tilt. Choking on his own emotions, Xu Ming forces himself to act normal. But for one agonizing microsecond, the horrific flashback of her bleeding out in his arms flashbangs his mind. Pushing the nightmare away, an incredibly soft, deeply genuine smile breaks across his face. The sheer euphoria of seeing her pulse beating again is completely unmatched. Just then, the speakers blast out the next candidate. Yi Yao jumps totally caught off guard. Shaking it off, she marches up to the stage and plants her palm flat against the heavenly stone, a colossal ancient relic radiating sparks of neon blue static. The exact millisecond her skin connects, a tidal wave of raw energy explodes out of the rock, swallowing her in a blinding pillar of light. The host, looking absolutely shook to his core, screams into the mic that Yi Yao has also triggered a hyper-rare hidden combat class necromancer. And she is rocking a wild 7-star attribute. The crowd is completely paralyzed, their jaws dropping to the floor in pure shock. Down in the pit, Xu Ming just watches with this icy knowing smirk. He already had the spoilers. The timeline is tracking perfectly with his memory. Now it is main character time. The host finally shouts Xu Ming's name. As he swaggers toward the stairs, Yi Yao leans in and whispers a sweet good luck. The crowd wasn't having it though. Hushed whispers ripped through the stands, everyone doubting a third hidden class could actually drop today. Especially not for a dirt-poor nobody like Xu Ming. But hold up, let's pull the camera back for a second to really grasp what's on the line here. Welcome to Planet Azure in the heart of the Dragon Nation. This is a universe entirely run by insanely overpowered awakened warriors. The awakening wave shattered reality decades ago. Now, the second a kid hits 18 years of age, they step up to the plate. They dive headfirst into the sacred ritual, praying for an awakening. These elites completely rewrite the food chain, unlocking god-tier abilities. We're talking warping reality itself and stacking unimaginable bags of cash. But all that juice comes with a brutal catch: the awakened live breathing pure danger, throwing down against nightmare creatures and clearing out slaughterhouse dungeons. As Xu Ming walked up to the celestial pillar, flashbacks of his past life as a scraping-by orphan slammed right into him. He used to survive on sheer pity and school grants, but back in his first timeline, awakening day was his massive glow-up. A blinding miracle crashed down from the sky, locking in a fiercely rare 9-star base stat. hand in hand with the legendary class title Godslayer. Now posting up on the stage of his second life, he was hyped to entirely script a new reality. He gripped the awakening relic dead set on forcing the whole world to respect his name. Boom! A blinding shockwave of neon purple and hot pink aura blasted outward, ripping a massive cosmic visual straight across the clouds. The announcer just locked up, his brain absolutely short-circuiting at the sight. He was panicking, wondering if this aura meant a 9-star prodigy just dropped, or if it was something straight-up divine. Yu and the rest of the squad were just as shell-shocked. Su Ming locked his knees, waiting for that familiar adrenaline hit of his original runes. But the plot completely swerved. A neon blue crest scorched itself onto his chest, and a holy relic spawned straight into thin air. It was the Ring of Defiance, the exact piece of gear he carried into the grave. Su Ming was practically glitching out. Figuring out this hardware jumped timelines with him was already insane, but before he could even digest it, another huge curveball dropped. An electric chill rushed through his veins as a glowing interface flashed into view. Ding! System alert. The Ultimate God Slayer mainframe is locking in. The prompt confirmed a fresh class drop. Status awakening complete. But instead of his old setup, he rolled something way more busted. A mythical tier class simply called Sword God. Su Ming just froze there, staring blankly into space, entirely mind-blown, doubting if a mythical tier even existed in real life. As the crushing gravity of his new title erupted into a massive tsunami of crimson aura, the whole stadium dropped into pin-drop silence. Even the MC jaw, practically unhinged, could not fathom what kind of build could spark a storm like this. Down in the trenches, the student body was totally freaking out, arguing over what it meant. A bunch of them were sweating bullets, terrified he rolled a non-combat class. If so, Su Ming was totally cooked. But Santin wasn't buying the hype, betting his life that a visual this crazy couldn't belong to a weak support build. Just standing there, watching cold sweat drenched his face. The suffocating gravity of Su Ming's aura was so intense he was literally locked in place. Meanwhile, Su Ming just posted up totally unfazed right in the eye of the hurricane, scanning his new stats. Swiping through the glowing gold interface, it locked in his new path, Sword God. A total 180 from his past life's Godslayer build, he tapped the floating menu, clearing a biometric scan that hard-locked his identity as Su Ming. Then the loadout dropped. Class Sword God stacked with a pure gold talent known as Universal Ascension. This absolutely hacked perk allowed him to buff or evolve literally anything he touched. Su Ming was stunned. He clocked right away that this gold tier buff sat leagues above even the legendary 9-star rank he hit in his past life. A wicked confident smirk sliced across his face. He knew for a fact this new arsenal completely dwarfed any divine hierarchy out there. Riding that high to check his starter kit, he popped open the skills menu, but that massive hype instantly flatlined into pure dread. The glowing display flatlined at 0%. Just a single brutal pop-up. Absolute zero skills unlocked. Su Ming's vision tunneled. His knuckles turned stark white as he clenched. His mind was screaming, like seriously, how does a top-tier gold rank drop with literally zero abilities? While he was mentally boxing the glitchy interface, the audience started buzzing. The massive delay had everyone side-eyeing each other in total confusion. The MC finally grabbed the mic, asking if the awakening ritual was actually wrapped up. Su Ming glared daggers at the blank screen, completely seething. He was flabbergasted. He just pulled a literal god-tier class only to be hit with a totally bare loadout. He swore the system was straight-up griefing him. But then a fresh notification pinged across his vision. It basically said his complaint was registered, and the tutorial sequence was kicking back into gear. A waypoint dragged his focus to the shimmering gold ring hovering dead ahead. Totally lost, he watched the relic ignite with blinding light. The system chimed in. Divine artifact identified. In a split second, the UI went supernova. A colossal laser of pure gold erupted right beneath his feet, tearing through the atmosphere and piercing the sky. A sonic boom ripped across the courtyard. The academy director had to literally plant his boots into the ground just to keep from flying backward. Way above the clouds, a massive rainbow-colored star projected itself. Slapped right in the middle was a giant number 10. The director's jaw hit the floor. He knew exactly what that emblem meant. A flawless 10-star innate stat. Trembling, he grabbed the mic and broadcasted that Su Ming just scored a 10-star hidden class, the Swordmaster. The entire stadium lost its collective mind. Kids were freaking out over this game-breaking potential, a tier strictly hard-locked for the country's absolute elite. Santan was frozen solid, totally mind-blown. A random classmate muttered that while an 8-star pull was insane, Su Ming just casual dropped a max-capped 10-star rarity. The director was practically glowing. He hyped this up as a monumental history-making moment for the campus. Not only did they bag several rare classes, but now they had an actual main character with a 10-star. He did point out that the Swordmaster archetype wasn't exactly S tier in the current meta, but with a base stat that cracked his ceiling was non-existent. As a massive flex, the director promised to personally sponsor him with a premium starter pack for leveling up. But the peanut gallery wasn't entirely sold on the hype. Salty whispers of hardcore disappointment started echoing through the handfuls of students were already calling it a massive fumble. They dragged the Swordmaster path as straight-up trash tier. A few kids tried to run defense, arguing that with brutal grinding a sword main could still carry as a solid DPS. And with his broken stats, he'd absolutely steamroll the competition. Up on the podium, Sumin caught every single piece of shade being thrown his way. He tilted his head, his eyes turning ice cold. He realized they literally viewed his build as unplayable dead weight. While the mob kept yapping, Ji Yao dashed over her face, lit up with a massive smile. She hyped him up for the awakening. He just gave her a chill nod back. She told him to tune out all the haters, reminding him that scoring a 10-star rank was actually unhinged. She agreed that the class was kind of a wet noodle in the early game, but she knew his pure base stats would totally carry him through the hate. Sumin flashed a warm, perfectly faked smile, shrugging off the drama like it was absolute zero. Deep down, he knew the real play. Letting these NPCs sleep on him was the ultimate wildcard. Ji Yao stood there, completely mind-boggled. Meanwhile, the ceremony forged ahead with the announcer booming the next name through the speakers. The entire courtyard lost its collective mind, as Xiao Man, the absolute untouchable IT girl of the academy, glided toward the spotlight while Santong played the role of her ultimate hype man from the sidelines. Ji Yao stared totally starstruck by her insane aura, but Su Ming stayed dead silent, his face pure ice. He could not even be bothered to spectate. He just pivoted on his heel and walked right out of there. Baffled, Ji Yao hollered after him, reminding him the main event was still going down. Su Ming tossed a freezing response over his shoulder, without missing a single beat. I literally do not care. As the cheering faded behind him, the raw trauma of his previous life slammed into his brain like a speeding truck. Flashbacks bombarded him, visions of Xiaoman playing him for an absolute fool, using him to climb, stabbing him in the back, and ending his life without flinching. That brutal vow he screamed with his final breath ignited inside him once again, supercharging his hunger to absolutely ruin them in this new reality. Fast forward, and Su Ming was silently navigating the bustling street. Everything looked exactly the same, a perfect mirror of his past. But deep down, the rules of reality had completely shifted, and he was an entirely different beast now. Tugging his hood low over his eyes, he scanned his interface and caught sight of a crazy passive trait. Total concealment, an ultra-rare buff letting him completely fake his equipment numbers, hide his job details, and totally scramble his entire build profile. He immediately clocked it. This was one of the 4 overpowered hacks he somehow smuggled back from the future, which triggered another massive realization. The God's Challenge Brilliant Ring. He stared at his own fingers in pure shock, realizing the God-tier relic had actually time-traveled alongside him. The second he concentrated on the band, his heads-up display flared to life. System alert, importing Heavenly Relic. As the item fully integrated, another text box popped off, verifying Su Ming just unlocked a fraction of his insanely broken previous class abilities. He stopped dead in his tracks, his brain basically short-circuiting. Wait, how was he dual-wielding his old abilities while already rocking the incredibly broken Sword God class? A glowing hologram projected in front of him, showing player Su Ming level 1, featuring flawlessly maximized base attributes. His path was cemented as Sword God, a legendary mythic tier exclusive to this reality, and his core trait read, Universal Ascension. His skill tree was absolutely loaded, God Slayer Blade. Total Concealment Shadow, Step in Insight Eye. Flexing this wild new intel, Su Ming immediately began cooking up his master plan. You know the classic proverb, flexing your wealth just puts a giant bullseye on your back. To guarantee nobody played him this time around, and since he was technically just starting out, he had to move like an absolute ghost. Even though burying a legendary 10-star talent was tough, he opted to encrypt every single file about his hyper-rare identity, the Sword God. He promised himself he would totally abuse this dude over absolutely refusing to make the same new blunders from his first run. He already memorized the playbook. The beginner dungeon challenge was scheduled to drop exactly 2 days post-awakening. Combining his veteran strats with his totally broken toolkit, clearing that zone would be an absolute joke. The mission outgrind the entire server and hoard the most cracked drops. To pull that off, he planned to blitz straight past the mobs and challenge the final raid boss on day 1. But before any of that, the guy desperately needed a blade that was not absolute trash. Cut to the literal top of the city inside an ultra-luxury high-rise dubbed the Palace. The energy was entirely different. Santong and Xiaomon were chilling on designer furniture. Xiaomon playfully roasted him for flexing so hard by bringing her to this VIP lounge, the literal second the ceremony ended. But Santong, fuming with sheer jealousy, completely blew off her flirting and started raging about how Su Ming absolutely robbed his spotlight. But Xiaomon was already playing absolute 4D mind games. She waved off his panic, breaking it down even if Su Ming unlocked the Swordmaster class. And his base numbers were absolutely broken. She promised that Su Ming was nothing but a high-tier pawn just begging to be milked for all he was worth. Hooked Santong demanded the full tea. A wicked smirk crept across her face as she pushed her glowing screen across the table. His jaw practically hit the floor, frustration evaporating into pure shock. Xiaomon mapped out the ultimate trap. She swore that if they just dangled the right bait in front of him, he'd snap it right up. Then, just like old times, they'd have him on a leash doing all their dirty work. Meanwhile, completely locked in on his own grind, Su Ming rolled up to a towering glass monolith that served as the city's premier weapons exchange. He punched the button for level 12s, instantly welcomed by the sleek staff of the Arms Emporium. Weaving through endless racks of lethal steel, he spotted the floor swarming with wide-eyed rookies gearing up for their first beginner raids. Whining echoed from a squad of broke kids sweating over a grim reminder that most of these guys were doomed to be absolute cannon fodder. Su Ming was just trying to cop some decent loot, but a massive commotion completely derailed his session. A heavy crowd was swarming a single glowing showcase, totally choking up the walkway. Everyone was foaming at the mouth over a neon blue weapon, the Tyrant's Frostblade. Rumor had it, this diamond-tier masterpiece was forged by an elite Grandmaster player. The chat was going wild with its lore, swearing it could flash freeze a boss's veins on impact. But that terrifying 1 million coin sticker price had them all backing away. Su Ming just stifled a laugh. He remembered the absolute truth from his previous life. That flashy junk was a total scam, and the sellers were speeding straight toward a prison sentence. His mental roast got interrupted when a luxury-clad boss lady stepped up to him, rocking an edgy silver bob. She had 2 absolute units for bodyguards, shadowing her every move. She confirmed he was Su Ming before dropping her name, Yang Lan, the vice president of the powerhouse Yangnan Group, and handed him a premium card. Su Ming snagged it, playing completely clueless, shrugging that she was basically a nobody to him. Yang Lan didn't even flinch at the disrespect. Making sure the entire floor could hear her flex, she announced that her corp was paying for his entire shopping spree today. Then came the catch. She needed him to do a job. One of the suits whipped out a glossy photo. It featured a brightly smiling girl, eyes concealed, posing in a field of white petals. Yang Lan revealed this was Yang Juning, her little sister, who went to his academy and had just popped her awakening. She casually dropped the bombshell that she had completely stalked his files, fully aware of his broken 10-star potential. With his crazy numbers, she knew the newbie raid would be an absolute cakewalk for him. Because that zone was strictly locked to rookies, she finally laid out her master plan. She demanded Su Ming squad up, with her sister acting as her personal meat shield to guarantee a flawless zero-damage clear. Su Ming didn't even blink. He instantly rejected the offer and spun on his heel to leave. Yang Lan completely lost her composure, screaming that he could literally grab any weapon in the building if he just said yes. Internally, she was throwing a total tantrum. This broke nobody was just coasting on sheer luck. He had absolutely zero right to humiliate her like that. Right as Yang Lan was about to fully snap, Su Ming froze. Looking completely unbothered, he pivoted back around and leveled a finger straight at the store's ultimate flex, the Tyrant's Frostblade, that million-coin piece of garbage. Yang Lan saw absolute red, completely convinced this kid was trying to openly rob her blind. She thought he was playing her for a fool. Unfazed by her doubting his actual worth, Su Ming just hit her with a cold reminder. She was the one throwing around blank checks for literally any gear in the armory. He laid it out plain and simple. If she was backing out now, the whole partnership was officially dead in the water. Flashing an arrogant smirk, Su Ming tossed out one last piece of He told her little sister to actually hit the training ground heavily, implying that daddy's money couldn't buy raw survival skills. In a split second, Yang Lan's furious glare melted away, shifting right into a deeply fascinated smile. This guy was an absolute puzzle to her, and she quietly realized she had probably played her hand completely wrong. Without another word, she spun around and strutted out of the lobby, her entire squad trailing right by. The remaining bystanders literally stood frozen in shock, buzzing about how some completely unknown freshman had just effortlessly clowned the top brass of the Yang Syndicate. Seconds later, a crisp chime echoed from Su Ming's pocket. It was a direct message from Xiaomon. The paragraph played out identical to his past life memories, full of fake apologies and claims that she had completely changed her tune. She sprinkled in some heavy romantic bait, begging for a secret. Su Ming just glared down at the glowing screen, a sinister chuckle escaping his lips. He mentally noted that even before unlocking her God-tier class, her toxic gaslighting playbook was already firing on all cylinders. Burning with a thirst for payback, his thumbs flew across the glass. Putting the trash on hold, Su Ming instantly shifted his focus completely back to the loot hunt. Waving over a terrified staff member, he pointed straight. The anxious worker explained that cracking these rocks open offered a microscopic chance of scoring a silver-class blade. She heavily warned him that the drop rates were absolute garbage, meaning 99% of them were totally catching her off guard. Su Ming calmly stated that this loot box trap, his internal strategy, was actually brilliant. Why burn a massive hole in his wallet for a shiny silver blade that would be totally useless trash in 7 days when he could? But here was the ultimate plot twist. For him, his eyes could literally scan and decode the hidden drop tables buried deep inside every single rock. All thanks to the ultimate cheat code carried over from his previous timeline, the Eye of Insight. A glowing blue interface flashed in his vision. Powering up his ocular hack, Su Ming instantly lunged forward and swiped a dusty gray rock without a single second of hesitation. He already knew that a guaranteed silver teardrop would normally bleed a buyer dry for hundreds, maybe thousands of adventurer tokens. But ripping a high-tier artifact straight out of the discount bin, that was an absolute infinite money glitch. While he chilled there, clutching his newly claimed prize, he started drawing some serious side eyes. A spiked-up blonde-haired kid lurking nearby instantly locked onto his face. Recognizing our protagonist as the absolute madman who actually had the spine to curve the ultra-powerful Yang Corporation. The blonde punk and his two meathead sidekicks, they were practically dying of laughter over the fact that he tossed away a VIP golden ticket from a literal billionaire enterperson, all just to blow his cash on a literal piece of gravel. They openly branded him an absolute clown, verbally thrashing him right in the aisle. But Su Ming barely blinked. His memory banks immediately Yang Din, a spoiled trust fund baby who dedicated his entire previous life to brutally griefing the low-level player base. Diagnosing this threat level as barely an annoying mosquito, Su Ming decided to thoroughly entertain himself. Without a single bead of sweat, Su Ming slowly pivoted toward Yang Din and threw down a high-stakes wager. 5,000 adventurer tokens, says he rips For a split second, the entire aisle went dead silent. Then Yang Din and his goons, thoroughly convinced Su Ming's brain had completely blue-screened, the rich kid threw him a mocking sneer. He would bet his life that the dusty rock held absolutely zero value. In his eyes, he had literally never witnessed a player so wildly desperate to instantly bankrupt themselves. Su Ming just stood there completely unbothered, already visualizing exactly whose ego was about to be brutally shattered. The second the cash dropped, Yandine snapped up the wager without it. Bystanders instantly swarmed the area, hungry for some prime drama. Su Ming stepped up to shatter the rock right on the spot, showing absolutely zero hesitation. With the entire audience practically holding their breath, he fired up his Eye of Insight. The world warped around him, exposing a pulsing neon red blade entombed within the solid stone. In one brutal motion, he obliterated the outer crust. A blinding crimson shockwave erupted, launching a colossal greatsword straight into the air. Yandine, his entire crew, and the packed audience completely short-circuited. Everyone was completely shook, watching Su Ming effortlessly snag the weapon, mid-flight, his grip locking perfectly around the hilt. A glowing holoscreen materialized. Crimson black iron sword officially designated as a low silver tier relic. Packing a nasty passive perk dubbed Crimson Drinker, this bad boy actively leached monster vitality to restore its wielder's health. Absolute pin-drop silence suffocated the room. Su Ming sliced through the empty air a couple of times, testing the weight and balance of his new prize. Pretty sick. Flashing a ruthless ice-cold smirk, he knew this edge was exactly what he needed for his midnight rendezvous with Xiao Mon. Meanwhile, Yandine and his lackeys were basically buffering, their brains failing to comprehend how this underdog just yanked premium silver loot from apps. Scanning the specs one more time, Su Ming realized that vampiric trait was totally broken. It guaranteed he could solo the upcoming dungeon without dragging a squishy medic along. The digital overlay locked in the final details. Silver tier black steel sword, boasting a sweet 10% lifesteal capacity. While the rich brat stood there vibrating with absolute dread, Su Ming leveled the razor, dropping a cold reminder that a wager is a wager, and those 5,000 credits just found a new wallet. Utterly crushed, Yandin wired the cash and stomped away, swallowing the massive L while muttering toxic threats. Su Ming chuckled, calling it a masterclass on why you never gamble blind. The store clerk was completely paralyzed, fully aware that no one had extracted a legit weapon from that trash pile in decades. Flexing his fresh stacks, Su Ming swaggered over to the register to cop a sheath, checking if 5,000 credits would seal the deal. The cashier frantically agreed. our guy dropped the bag on a premium silver-plated tactical scabbard, a sweet accessory that instantly slashed weapon degradation by 50%. He smirked, fully aware this upgrade would keep his deadly new toy factory fresh for a long time. While gripping the sheathed heavy metal, a holographic alert flared up, offering to activate a secret weapon manifestation mechanic. Xu Ming swiped left. Not today. The vibe just wasn't there yet. A sly grin crept across his face. He had to pump up the blade's rarity tier before anything else. Fast forward to a chill walk through the local park. Xu Ming mentally reviewed his... he had unlocked the legendary sword god path, but his active skill tree was completely hollow. But honestly, his baseline kit featured an absolutely cracked, primal talent universal ascension. This literal cheat code let him supercharge any piece of loot, exactly one time proving his mythic status wasn't just pure cap. Tightening his grip on the hilt, he decided to take this power for a test drive. The interface chimed confirming the execution of universal ascension. Boom, flawless execution. The original vampiric trait absorbed an absolutely massive power spike. The metal began throbbing with a savage blood-red energy field. A final notification plastered the boosted specs across his vision. It had mutated straight into a high-tier silver-crimson-black steel sword. Its core passive now siphoned vitality the second it touched an enemy. Even crazier, he unlocked a fresh perk called Bloodlust, stacking a temporary power surge after every single execution. Xu Ming flashed a wicked grin. This loadout was beyond perfect. Fully geared up, and hoarding that hidden manifestation trump card, he already knew tomorrow's beginner raid was going to be in. Later that exact same night, Xu Ming rolled up to the academy's highest rooftop. He just stood there, his shadow cutting a sharp silhouette against the glowing cyberpunk city horizon. Fingers wrapping tightly around the hilt of his fresh steel, Xiaoman was already chilling right there waiting for him. She flashed that trademark toxic smirk, but the atmosphere instantly plummeted to sub-zero. No words exchanged. Xu Ming just blitzed her. She barely sidestepped the lethal swing, as the heavy metal shattered the concrete wall, exactly where her head just was. Xiaoman locked up, absolutely shook eyes, blown wide in pure panic. Xu Ming pierced through her with dead icy pupils, broadcasting one message loud and clear. He came for blood. A fractured nightmare hijacked his brain. His brutal execution in the first timeline bleeding out on the pavement while cradling Yao's lifeless body. All while this exact same girl stood over them grinning like an absolute psychopath. Snapping back to the present, she looked straight up, bewildered and pissed. Her brain could not compute why her supposedly devoted simp was suddenly crashing out right after saying yes to her confession. Xu Ming did not even blink, planted like a total menace with a terrifyingly calm grin. He knew her little love confession was a ghost from a deleted save file. Back then, she was the untouchable queen bee of the academy, and he was just the invisible broke orphan. He recalled the morning following their initial awakening trial, when she slithered up to him, rocking that artificial sweetheart persona, faking her sympathy. In that second, he finally felt like he actually mattered. Chasing that high pushed him to shoot his shot in her DMS. The late-night hangouts, the dates, and a romance he genuinely believed was endgame. But that fairy tale shattered the second he caught her sneaking around with Song Tang. The absolute ultimate backstab. Dragged back to the brutal reality, raw fury twisted Xu Ming's expression. Sick of her toxic games, he dragged her right there, exposing how she used him as a pathetic little stepping stone. He aired out all her filthy backdoor plotting with Song Tang, speaking with deadly confidence like he had a folder full of literal receipts. She was completely caught off guard, desperately trying to gaslight him, but he was completely tuning out her garbage. He could see right through her pathetic lies. Her flawless, innocent angel aesthetic was just a massive fraud. To him, she was nothing but walking garbage. That single look shattered her ego. Xiaoman officially tweaked, dropping the good girl facade entirely. Her features warped into pure, unfiltered malice, glaring at him with heavy disgust. She shrieked that he was always just a worthless peasant, swearing a zero talent, nobody like him did not even deserve to inhale her oxygen. Then she hit him with the ultimate warning. Both her and Song Tang were going to make his life a living hell. Letting her verbal garbage echo out, Xu Ming simply threw his head back and chuckled, flashing a dangerously sarcastic smirk. He decided to troll her a little harder, casually suggesting she should stop obsessing over him and start stressing about how this messy little tantrum was going to utterly destroy that spotless, pure girl reputation she desperately gatekept. That comment was the absolute final straw. Totally unhinged and seeing red, she snatched the blade Xu Ming purposely left buried in the wall, slashing right at his neck without a single second of hesitation. As the lethal edge sliced through the air, massive déjà vu hit him. In his previous life, she pulled this exact same grimy stunt. But the massive difference now, he was 10 steps ahead, milliseconds before the fatal impact. Glowing blood-red veins violently erupted from the sword, paralyzing the steel completely in midair. Xiaoman froze completely, glitching out in panic. The system chimed in. Crimson Drinker skill officially triggered. A brutal scarlet vine slithered straight out of the hilt, wrapping a chokehold around her. Su Ming knew his trap was flawless the second he tagged her with that cursed weapon. It was officially checkmate. One of the glowing threads snapped violently, whipping a vicious slash straight. A blood-curdling shriek shattered the silence. The horrifying realization that her perfect face was destroyed forever had just set in. She crumpled to the concrete like a broken doll. Standing above her, Su Ming didn't even flinch, his gaze completely frozen over. The universe was finally cashing its reality check. For him, this beautiful payback was just day one of his villain era. Yet she kept howling in agony, screaming bloody murder that Sangtang was going to wipe him off the map for this. Su Ming literally couldn't care less. With a simple thought, he commanded his blade, watching the weapon pixelate into thin air as it snapped back into his inventory and casually spun around to leave. Deep down, he was begging Sangtang to pull up. Slicing her face was barely an appetizer. Walking away from her pathetic wailing on that roof, it hit him that blade did way more than draw blood. It permanently deleted whatever tragic lingering feelings he still harbored for her toxic self. A little while later, his phone vibrated. An academy alert lit up his screen. Principal Wong had slid into his DMs with a massive congratulations on his awakening, along with a sweet care package to get him fully kitted out for the beginner instance. The drop featured an enhancement elixir, standard issue combat gear, and a fat stack of 10,000 adventurer coins straight into his balance. By 6 a.m. on the dot the following morning, Su Ming was gripping the headmaster's elixir. He respected the gesture, but the condescension radiating off it was loud. The higher-ups honestly believed his 10-star potential was totally nerfed by a bottom-barrel class. He swallowed the pill whole. It tasted like absolute battery acid, but that horrific flavor evaporated the moment his entire being erupted. In an aggressively bright golden glow, the system interface chimed in his vision. Bam! The booster instantly slammed, 10 raw points into his vitality, alongside 100 experience points. In a heartbeat, he dinged level 2 and bagged another 10 free stat points ready to be distributed. Character sheet successfully updated. He acquired a fresh passive ability, Innate Sword Physique. He had basically manifested a weapon of mass destruction inside his very core. Every single bladed technique out there, he could now conquer them with absolutely zero limits. Su Ming flashed a cocky grin. He always knew this was the ultimate cheat code of a 10-star prodigy. Grinding levels was a whole different vibe now. New abilities would just naturally unlock, as long as he kept farming experience. Adrenaline absolutely surging, he locked in on his primary objective. It was time to entirely obliterate the tutorial dungeon and give these scrubs a masterclass in raw dominance. A hot minute later, he strolled into the staging area for the Academy's premier rookie instance. The courtyard was absolutely swarming with anxious freshmen and pulsating rift gates. Out of nowhere, a familiar group pulled up. The exact same absolute losers who were openly mocking his profession 24 hours ago. Now, they were practically on their knees begging for a team invite. They were utterly swarming him, gassing up his 10-star rating and the headmaster's sponsorship, assuming his presence guaranteed an easy clear. They pitched this whole narrative about carrying his supposedly fragile swordsman build, pretending they were doing him some heroic solid, when in reality they were just desperately thirsty to leech off his insane damage output. The sheer audacity made Su Ming nauseous, and he rejected them on the spot. "My roster is full," he fired back completely deadpan. Overhearing the shutdown, a wide-eyed Yi Yao practically sprinted over. She had been desperately hunting for a reliable party arriving at the crack of dawn, strictly to recruit him before anyone else could. Su Ming rubbed the back of his neck, trying to reject her as gently as possible. His current mission was way past hunting for low-tier drops, and he refused to let her get caught in his crossfire. Mentally, he was already fully committed to soloing the entire zone. But before Yi Yao could even register the rejection, a blue-haired guy wearing a wildly arrogant smirk forcefully interrupted them. Enter Yanxi, a 9-star demon-hunting prodigy. He pitched a highly polished introduction and directly demanded Su Ming join his elite faction. Su Ming instantly recognized his punchable face from his previous life. Absolute hard pass, zero hesitation involved. Before the scout could even try to flex on him, Yi Yao aggressively stepped into the gap, physically blocking the newcomer. "Our Q is maxed," she lied smoothly. The surrounding vultures immediately caught the hostile web and scattered, muttering extremely awkward apologies. As soon as the chaotic mob dispersed, Su Ming flashed Yi Yao an expression of legitimate gratitude. She was an absolute G for that save. Checking his interface, he realized the raid lock was lifting in mere seconds. Right on schedule, a colossal azure gateway violently twisted into existence. The intercom blared across the courtyard, declaring the official launch of Rookie Trial 127. High above the swirling vortex, a massive glitchy hologram of Headmaster Wang suddenly projected across the sky. The dude literally looked like he crawled straight out from under his covers, whispering a half-baked apology for sleeping in. Then dropped the bombshell briefing, a brutal mandatory 24-hour survival exam. The system synced everyone up. The rule was simple. Your score depends entirely on your body count. The pro tip: build a party fast. Grouping up meant higher survival rates and a decent shot at beating the clock before time expired. But while the headmaster was still up there yapping, Yi Yao threw a glance over her shoulder to check on Su Ming. Nothing but thin air. She whipped her head around, totally baffled. The absolute microsecond the dungeon gates unlocked, a shadowy streak blasted past the entire crowd, plunging headfirst into the chaotic, glowing vortex. The whole plaza gasped in shock. A solo player. Yep, it was Su Ming. The 10-star absolute menace just dropped in solo. As the transfer zone warped around him, a massive wave of nostalgia slammed into his chest. Flashbacks of his past life flooded his brain, the raw panic, the heart-pounding adrenaline rush. Suddenly, an earth-shattering system voice ripped through the void. Welcome to the meat grinder, fresh meat. It gave a chilling warning. This zone was dripping in top-tier loot, but it was also a massive graveyard. Want to escape? Just execute the standard boss. But the system teased a much darker, twisted route, offering god-tier drops for any psycho willing to risk it all. Su Ming just narrowed his eyes. He already knew the exact meta. In this life, he absolutely refused to settle for basic. He was out for blood, hunting down the legendary hidden boss. He materialized straight into an overgrown, moon-drenched rainforest. The system interface flashed Furious Tide Forest Rank F territory. He instantly clocked that the map's random generation had completely reset. The geography here was wildly different from his previous run. Knowing the drop locations were entirely randomized for every single player, he realized he had to improvise his entire route on the fly. This meant gambling blindly on whatever horrors lurked ahead, cranking the danger level of this speedrun all the way up to max. Sprinting ahead, Su Ming couldn't even catch his breath before colliding with a colossal mutated tree demon. The towering beast literally wore a crown of blazing hellfire and flaunted a jagged wooden face straight out of a horror movie. His past life memory clicked. The abomination was chained to the soil, but it whipped out razor-sharp vines to yank its prey straight into the roaring flames. But Su Ming was absolutely not here to waste time brawling with random trash mobs. He was strictly locked in on the jackpot, tracking down that secret boss. So, he made the split-second call to completely bypass these elite hazards. Pulling up his holographic map, he charted a flawless high-speed route. The entire reason he ditched the crowd to enter first was to instantly snowball a massive early-game lead. He desperately needed to scout the uncharted terrain and stockpile the exact ritual items required to trigger the hidden encounter. Sure, the terrain scrambled itself annually, but the core mechanics for unlocking the boss room remained totally unchanged. He had to blitz through this zone before the massive wave of students swarmed in and turned item farming into an absolute nightmare. With the strategy set, he basically teleported forward, shredding through the thick canopy like a literal ghost. Fast forward to exactly 7:30 a.m. A fresh squad of rookies dropped straight into the danger zone. A girl rocking icy blue hair and her two partners swept their eyes across the dead silent clearing. Spotting absolutely zero threats, their shoulders dropped. They totally assumed this sector was a safe haven. But that cozy illusion violently shattered the split second she heard something heavy ripping through the foliage. She frantically signaled her crew. Snapping their heads up, they watched another kid literally burst through the thick bushes, face planting into the dirt right at their feet. Gripping a massive hammer, the dude was screaming his lungs out in pure terror. The rookie squad just froze, completely paralyzed as the actual nightmare charged into the clearing. Two monstrous, mutated rats. Their demonic red eyes pierced the shadows. Instantly recognizing the lethal scavengers, the squad's confidence flatlined to absolute zero. Pure, unfiltered panic took over. They scattered in every direction like frightened bugs, sprinting blindly just to survive. Meanwhile, back at the main plaza, the brutal reality of this test was finally setting in. Right at 7 a.m., a glowing holographic kill feed booted up above the portal. Flashing a grim update, 3 players had already been shredded and devoured by the mutant rodents. The most shocking casualty on that death list lied, a heavy-hitting 6-star elite, Yi Yao, who was frantically running around trying to recruit a decent party, was absolutely rattled. Watching a top-tier prodigy get instantly deleted, she started screaming at the stragglers to hustle up and lock in their squads, warning the crowd that the players already trapped inside desperately needed immediate reinforcements. But meanwhile, Deep within the shadows of the raging tide forest, things hit absolute rock bottom. That blue-haired girl from earlier, she was tearing through the woods like her life depended on it. Bleeding out and completely isolated in the madness, she lost her squad and ended up hopelessly stranded. Desperate to figure out where she was, a suffocating aura suddenly locked onto her. She tilted her head up, only to catch the terrifying outline of a gargantuan ape-like monstrosity lurking in the branches above. The absolute unit slammed into the dirt, locking eyes with her, through a gaze dripping with pure, unadulterated evil. Paralyzed to the core, she could not even flinch as the brute propelled its massive frame right at her face. Bracing for the game over screen, she slammed her eyes shut and shrieked for an absolute miracle. Out of nowhere, a blur of blazing crimson ripped through the air at supersonic speed. Enter Su-Ming. His dark crimson blade erupted into a tornado of steel, completely body-blocking the giant ape's advance. Pure pandemonium swallowed the freshly awakened rookies, leaving them hopelessly scattered and brutally outscaled. One panicking kid screamed about his trash RNG. After walking straight into a level, his complaints instantly morphed into an agonizing shriek when the predator shredded him faster than he could blink. And this slaughterfest was not just happening in one isolated spot. Across the map, kids were sprinting for their lives from absolute horrors like the Level 2 Swamp Hunter and the Level 3 Tracking Hound. Dozens were getting brutally wiped out. The comms network was absolutely melting down with frantic SOS signals. Panic-stricken voices confirmed that massive enemy swarms were literally pleading for backup that was never going to show up. Right in the middle of this bloodbath, one survivor found herself completely isolated. Trapped in a circle of her fallen squadmates. Utterly shattered by trauma and panic, she crumpled down into the overgrown weeds. Trembling violently, her mind echoed with her team's final order to stay out of sight. Not even 30 minutes had passed since the exam kicked off, yet the difficulty curve jumped so wildly that she figured the whole lobby was doomed. Zero chance any beginner could make it out of these cursed woods alive. Cutting back to our blue-haired girl, she is literally a deer in headlights, cornered by that colossal muscle-bound ape freak. The behemoth dives in for the kill. Su-Ming streaks past like a phantom, launching himself right over the petrified student. He nails a flawless superhero touchdown dead center between her and the raging monster. She gazes up at her savior, absolutely flabbergasted. Her brain instantly assumes that overpowered titan with god-tier damage. A massive wave of relief hits her the second she recognizes his face. Hold up, is not he that legendary 10-star prodigy? Su-Ming keeps his chill, acting like he was just taking a casual afternoon stroll. Then he drops a harsh reality check. He will not be able to bail her out a second time. Oh, and by the way, that oversized monkey is still very much alive. Her jaw literally hits the floor. The brute is still breathing. Whipping around, she spots a massive, terrifying shadow eclipsing her completely. Full panic mode activates. Realizing she needs to dip and find immediate backup, she sprints out of there. Now it is a one-on-one showdown between Su-Ming and the brute. Without breaking a sweat, he activates his perception eye. The digital interface flashes into view. Enemy scanned. It is a mutated ape. Its raw power and defense stats are off the charts, but its speed is absolute garbage thanks to its mutant build. That totally explains how the beast managed. Shaking off the damage, the Ape King skyrockets upward, winding up those boulder-sized fists to deliver a skull-shattering ground pound. Su-Ming smoothly dodges the strike with zero effort. A cocky grin spreads across his face. Not too sluggish for a heavyweight. Time to push the envelope. He taps deep into his mental archives to access abilities carried over from his previous life. He locks in option 3, Hidden God Step. A crisp system chime validates the skill activation. Prepare for a gigantic velocity buff. It straight up amplifies his quickness by 50% and triggers complete invulnerability. He becomes completely untouchable. The only downside, it guzzles stamina like crazy. An explosive wave of teal aura engulfs Su-Ming. Bam, he disappears into thin air and immediately respawns directly behind the heavily confused ape. The monster bellows in rage and whips around to strike, but Su-Ming has already ghosted in another blinding flash. Levitating above the fumbling creature, Su-Ming makes the call to finish it. This entire brawl is absolute dread floods the creature's gaze as Su-Ming's cold silhouette reflects inside its trembling, blown-out pupil. It is officially wraps. He drops a soul-crushing final strike, slicing the abomination cleanly in half. Cue the system chime, a flawless dub. The carcass pixels away, melting into blue code before the loot menu flashes on screen. Jackpot, a fresh ability scroll. Turns out it is just a garbage tier bronze single target move. Looming over the fading pixels, he just rolls his Definitely not god tier, but for a tutorial zone, he will absolutely take it. Without warning, a blinding halo of gold swallows him whole. A colossal first blood banner bursts across his vision. An ear-shattering, server-wide broadcast booms across the entire domain. It screams that a measly level 2 Blade Master just packed up the mutated Ape King for the very first takedown, snagging the ultimate pioneer achievement for the entire lobby. All the other rookies sweating bullets and fighting for survival completely freeze up. They gawk at the floating text in pure disbelief. The icing on the cake, every single player bags a complimentary minor HP potion as a server-wide buff. One banged-up girl grips the glowing red vial manifesting in her palm, exhaling a massive shaky breath of relief. The global chat absolutely explodes. Everyone is frantically guessing the identity of this ghost swordsman. Half the lobby instantly wagers it is the legendary 10-star prodigy Suman. The rest swear it has to be some hidden veteran class. But the consensus is clear. This boss wipe proves the raid is actually survivable. Cut back to the bloodstained clearing. Suman is internally screaming. He completely blanked on the global broadcast mechanics, suddenly terrified his overpowered stats are about to get leaked. He instantly pivots to stealth mode, vowing to ghost his way through the rest of the map. He clicks on total anonymity in the settings, ensuring all his upcoming flexes stay strictly off the radar. Honestly, he is slightly baffled. 30 minutes deep into the raid and nobody else has managed to flatline even one mob. Pushing further into the dense thicket, he abruptly slams the brakes. A rabid swarm of level 3 timber wolves prowls out of the shadows. Their neon green irises pulse with pure predatory hunger. Suman flashes a cocky, fearless smirk. He recognizes these hounds instantly. They are the absolute holy grail for power leveling. The absolute perfect test dummies for his shiny new kit. He had already burned his ultra-rare passive universal ascension to buff that trash bronze drop from the boss monkey. The interface triggered a massive evolution, mutating the base spell into a stupidly broken god-tier art. He just bagged a vicious low-tier silver talent called Draw Cut, the core mechanic straight-up anime samurai execution. Lock the steel in the scabbard channel, absolute zen, and vaporize everything in one blink and you miss it slash. The exact split second those beasts snarled, Suman unleashed a colossal glowing blue energy wave exploded violently into the rushing stampede. The shockwave ripped through the alpha pack with catastrophic armor-shredding kinetic force. It was an absolute massacre. His draw cut did not merely scratch them. It instantly severed and vaporized the entire wave, showering him in a dopamine rush of infinite XP notifications. By 9:30 in the morning, he was the only thing breathing in that eerily quiet zone boots, stepping over a literal carpet of glitched-out carcasses. Smiling like a menace, he watched the golden holographic box confirm his grind. Level 9 unlocked complete with a flex-worthy new badge, the Legend of the Hungry Wolf. It clicked in his head this range was the undeniable absolute best meta for speedrunning low-tier fodder. Dropping back into a low crouch, he clicked the katana back into its sheath to gather his aura. Mana flared as he locked his radar onto the next victim. Eyes icy cold, he ripped out another devastating combo. A secondary tidal wave of blue death roared forward, primed to erase another hunting party. Except this time his attack slammed into a brick wall. Suman's pupils shrank in pure shock. His lethal ripping through the thick smoke, a gargantuan shadow stomped into the clearing. A towering mutated lycanthrope with blazing crimson eyes locked onto him. The UI screamed its identity level 10, Boss the Wolf King. It glared straight through his soul with unadulterated bloodthirsty rage. While Suman was out here effortlessly speedrunning the map, the rest of the Academy scrubs were barely figuring out the tutorial. Rewind to 8:30, a full hour post-launch, clunky alliances finally glued together, storming the warp gate, hyped to fight back. Echoes of chaotic war cries ripped through the air as the rookie factions charged in. Bolstered by the massive student vanguard, they finally started bulldozing. Off to the side, one squad found themselves trapped in a desperate do-or-die blood. A blue-haired warrior dashed in out of nowhere, cleaving a gnarly mutated rat right in half to bail out his downed teammate. Both guys just sat there breathless and hyped, soaking in the sweet glow of those XP orbs raining down on them. A system chime locked in the mutated field mouse kill. The whole squad was absolutely buzzing, riding that insane adrenaline rush. Now that backup was here, one dude was literally sobbing tears of joy finally seeing that golden level up flash. But that celebratory vibe died instantly when an earth-shattering system alert blasted across. A massive hologram flashed declaring another First Blood achievement, this time for executing an elite boss mob. And the specifics, they left every single player absolutely because the absolute unit who pulled off this impossible raid was a level 9 fisherman. The epic loot, the ultra-rare leader of leaders title. Utter disbelief instantly went viral through the ranks. Nobody could process how a chill zero combat lifestyle class could suddenly become a god-tier boss slayer, let alone grinding to level 9 this fast. So, Let's rewind the clock 10 minutes to unmask this mystery angler. Surprise, it was Su Ming. He was seconds before squaring up solo against the Alpha Wolf King. And the showdown was absolute cinema. Su Ming unleashed a devastating power cleave, but the Alpha was lightning fast, narrowly sidestepping the lethal blow. Even so, the shockwave caught the beast, tearing open a massive bleeding gash and absolutely melting its health bar. Zero hesitation, Su Ming vaulted into the sky with terrifying velocity, plunging his blade straight down for the fatal strike. Boom! System confirmed. He had single-handedly securing a massive 500 XP, perfectly pushing him to level 10. His mastery surged and the epic drops burst forth. A razor-sharp iron-rending claw alongside the pulsing heart of that legendary execution was what triggered the global leader of leaders broadcast to every single player. Cut back to the deep forest where Yan Ding and his squad were drowning in a brutal, muddy brawl against a panting and completely drenched in monster blood. They finally managed to put down the last beast. One of Yan Ding's guys collapsed in relief, thanking the heavens for that clutch. That global power-up from the leader of leaders title had literally activated right on time to carry them. But then he just had to bring up the Phantom level 9 fisherman who actually secured the ult. Hearing that Yan Ding absolutely lost his mind, he was fuming, unable to accept that a garbage lifestyle class was outscaling him. Watching a casual support class speedrun the zone felt like a massive slap in the face to a hardcore DPS main like him. He glared furiously at his busted machete, totally convinced Su Ming had ruthlessly. If he hadn't been swindled, he'd be out here wielding a premium silver tier blade instead of this useless scrap metal. One of his buddies nervously tried to de-escalate the situation, suggesting Su Ming just got blessed by some insane RNG luck. But Yan Ding was seeing pure red. He lashed out, dumping all that radioactive rage. He yelled that he was out here soaking up every single hit while they just stood around like bots. After massacring that entire pack, the split experience points barely scraped him up to level 2. The dude felt ridiculously scammed, and instantly his mental crosshairs locked dead onto Su Ming. He viciously swore that if they crossed paths in this dungeon, he was gonna delete him on sight. His squad desperately tried to cool him down, but Yan Ding just gave a nasty villainous scoff. Meanwhile, miles away, our boy Su Ming had already shattered the level 10 milestone. Hidden in the thick underbrush, he fired up his holographic interface, and a massive glowing prompt flashed on screen. Alert level 10 achieved. The primary class evolution quest is now unlocked. The specific mission objectives were literally calibrating, in real time pulling data straight from his current stats. Su Ming smirked, knowing this was the ultimate turning point, because in his previous timeline, he never even survived to see level 10. In his previous life, he waited until he actually cleared the tutorial zone. Back then, the system totally screwed him over, locking his class upgrade behind a brutal dungeon he had absolutely zero business entering. Hitting a massive brick wall, he had to sweat and grind to level 15, just to survive it, absolutely nuking his reward tier in the process. But this timeline completely built different. By maxing out his level while still trapped in the noob area, the system bent to his will, scaling the quest straight to his local map. Right on cue, the mission pings. His target, the Red Rock Cave Guardian, a nasty elite boss lurking inside the Raging Tide Forest. A devilish grin tugs at his lips. This was going to be a total breeze. Dripping with absolute confidence, Su Ming knows his first evolution is already guaranteed. He aggressively dumps every single available stat point into agility. Bam! A hidden system prompt explodes onto his screen. He literally just shattered the 100-point agility ceiling. The payoff: a starter, platinum tier passive strictly for the sword. God Path, the Sword Martial Master. And let me tell you, this skill is utterly busted. It straight up lets him wield any blade in existence, totally ignoring those annoying level and stat locks. Smash cut to the first Chuang Academy boardroom. An anxious assistant swipes a glowing hologram across the desk to Director Wang, displaying the live competitive rankings for all the local heavy hitters. The director's face instantly drains of color. Su Ming, his supposed 10-star golden boy, is nowhere to be found on that screen. Sweating bullets, the assistant tries running damage control, coping that the sword controller class just takes time to cook, but deep down, missing the top 500 entirely is a massive red flag. Bam! The massive oak doors violently blast open. A woman stomps into the room, leaking absolute killer intent. Meet Enrolling, the vice mayor of Shuangqing City. And she is out for blood. She immediately starts roasting the director for hyping up his fake 10-star prodigy, violently pointing out that his superstar has literally zero presence on the global ladder. Director Wang scrambles to spit out an excuse, but she instantly shuts him down, loudly accusing him of cooking Su Ming's numbers, just to hoard more VIP passes for the ultra-elite Sky Tower Council. She aggressively gestures at the broadcasting monitors. Right now, Yanxi and Santan are the only ones actually carrying their weight. Thanks to this absolute disaster, she drops the hammer. She brutally slashes the Academy's token budget from 3 down to a measly 2. And then the death threat. If they flop the rankings one more time, next year's budget hits absolute 0. Total exile. Leaving that massive bomb behind, the vice mayor dramatically storms out. Principal Wong is left completely paralyzed, desperately gripping his last 2 tokens. Panic completely sets in. The Celestial Tower Council is literally the golden key to his students' futures. He gambled his entire career on Su Ming clutching up an extra seat, not completely throwing the match and costing them everything. Now all he can do is pray this kid actually locks in. Cut back to the shadows of the Raging Tide Forest. Su Ming rolls up to the terrifying entrance of the Red Rock Cave. A quick glance at the mini-map confirms it. This is the exact drop zone for his evolution. He takes a slow, deep breath to anchor himself. The trek over here was weirdly dead, but glaring into that pitch-black void, the vibes are incredibly cursed. Because he completely dodged this raid in his past life, he is walking straight into a deadly blind spot. Dead serious, he slowly edges into the darkness. Crash. A hideously mutated blue freak drops from the ceiling, cutting him off. Piercing crimson eyes, razor-sharp fangs. It is a level 6 gold miner goblin, and it is staring him down with pure, unfiltered rage. Before the little rat can even screech, Su Ming's blade flashes. He tries to absolutely blitz it, frantically trying to secure the stealth kill before the entire cave aggroes. But that panic swing instantly backfires. A glowing system alert slaps him in the face. Congratulations! You just set off the Goblin Cave Hive alarm. Special Goblin mode has been unleashed. Suman stops dead in his tracks, the heavy reality checking him hard. Earning this class upgrade is about to be an absolute nightmare. The shadows peel back, exposing a relentless, writhing ocean of goblins. Their eyes blaze like ruby lasers as they stampede forward. Then the system hits him with the ultimate jump scare. Every single monster inside Red Rock Cave just locked onto his coordinates. Endless aggro activated. A glowing prompt spells it out. Going Goblin mode is not merely a stat boost, it is a feral frenzy driven by pure malice and hunger. Pushed to the brink, our boy starts slicing through the front line, carving them up one by one. Sure, these dudes are just low-tier fodder, but dealing with a mob that is straight up a one-way ticket to the graveyard. While he baits the horde further into the abyss, a cold dread washes over him. Will his blade shatter before this bloodbath ends? Out of nowhere, the true threat materializes from the pitch-black void. A hulking elite boss hoists a radiant, gigantic warhammer. The brute launches into the air, crashing down with the force of an asteroid, forcing Suman to barely dive out of the blast zone. But he just got totally played. The exact millisecond he leaves the ground, snipers let loose a deadly barrage from the shadows. A storm of steel pierces his armor, draining his HP bar. He hits the dirt hard, a chilling truth sinking in. These freaks are not your average brain-dead bots. They are actually using big brain strats, striking the second he is vulnerable, and the onslaught is far from over. The instant his heels strike the floor, a pair of assassins plunge from the rocky roof, blades drawn. Sparks fly. He blocks the fatal strike, but the swarm is suffocating. Glancing at his HUD, his magic gauge is absolutely bleeding out. Mindlessly casting his ultimate shadow ability is about to become impossible. Boxed in by the mob and their beefy commander, the survival rate for a low-level rookie looks completely chalked. Anybody else would totally choke. Yet Suman, a cocky grin flashes across his lips. If going sicko mode fails, it is time to finesse the system. Triggering a flawless dodge, he scales the rugged walls, catapulting his body straight out of the death trap. Survival over slaughter. The monsters freeze up, completely mind-boggled by his vanishing act. Crouching silently behind a massive boulder, he observes their panic with a villainous smirk. Bait taken. Out of nowhere, he teleports to a vantage point towering over the chaos. Gripping his sword, he unleashes a blinding tsunami of pure power. The explosive blast rips through the crowd, one-shotting every single weakling in its path. Game over. Our guy had this calculated from the jump. Claiming the high ground, he spams his ranged attacks to completely clear the lobby. Showing zero mercy, he deletes the final survivors. Driving his blade downward, he nails a flawless superhero landing, right in the middle of the glowing loot. Pin drop silence. The hulking boss is left entirely alone, staring in absolute shock, as his entire battalion turns to pixelated dust in the blink of an eye. Suman casually strolls toward the battered commander, its HP bar flashing a critical, desperate red. There is no running away, but plot twist, he actually has a secret spectator lurking just outside. A literal snake in the grass. One of Yanding's cronies is hiding in the foliage, spying on the whole thing. He immediately taps his earpiece, snitching all the details back to his boss. Heavy metallic clashes ring out from the cavern entrance. Yanding just rolls his eyes. Like there is zero chance someone is crazy enough to solo rush a level 7 dungeon straight out of the tutorial. Pure self-sabotage. But his lackey is persistent, swearing on his life that blades are crossing. Suddenly Yanding's arrogant grin vanishes. Heavy footsteps echo, crushing the gravel closer and closer from the abyss. Both thugs lock their gaze on the pitch-black void, watching a lone menacing shadow peel away from the dark. Who in their right mind is grinding inside a literal slaughterhouse like this? And then the mystery player steps straight into the moonlight. Yanding completely paralyzes his brain, absolutely short-circuiting. There stood Su Ming, bruised and dripping blood, sure, but radiating pure boss energy. Catching sight of those cowards lurking in the brush, Su Ming just exhaled a heavy breath. The universe seriously loves forcing haters into the exact same lobby. He honestly couldn't care less about their little one-sided beef. Mentally, he was entirely zoned out, still replaying the absolute chaos of his last battle. That promotion quest was insanely brutal, putting him way too close to the grave. But on the bright side, he finally secured level 11. An absolute win. But abruptly his survival instincts flared up. Driven by nothing but pure toxic salt, Yang Ding launched a pathetic. Su Ming did not even bother glancing back. He casually drifted out of the way, dodging the trashy ambush like brushing off a mosquito. Yang Ding choked on his own breath, visibly stunned. His stealth play missed terribly. Burning with embarrassment and rage, he snapped at his two lackeys to fan out and trap Su Ming. Gassing himself up with his squad backing him, Yang Ding invaded Su Ming's personal space, desperately blaming him for taking massive losses all day. He kept yapping about how cursed fate dragged them into the same dungeon. Meanwhile, Su Ming simply stared right through the squad, completely unbothered. Yang Ding refused to shut up, throwing insults left and right, practically begging to see Su Ming panic. Su Ming merely tilted his head and delivered the ultimate disrespect. "Hold on, who are you again?" The air left Yang Ding's lungs. The reality slapped him across the face. Su Ming had literally zero memory of him. The absolute audacity, his blood pressure skyrocketed. How on earth do you forget the guy who scammed you out of 5,000 adventurer coins? Howling like a complete psycho, he ordered his crew to jump him. The three clowns sprinted forward. Su Ming held his ground, internally sighing. "Are we seriously throwing hands over my awful memory?" Then a wicked grin crept onto his face. He clamped his hand around his hilt. Honestly, this was the ultimate opportunity to test out his fresh upgrades. With a simple flex, his weapon materialized. The razor-sharp steel flared up, swallowed by a violent blood-red energy. Zero hesitation, he activated his blade mastery skill. Swish! The sword rocketed forward, ripping through the atmosphere entirely on autopilot. It was practically teleporting. Before those goons could even twitch, the glowing weapon shredded right past them in a dazzling crimson flash. Boom! The three attackers got ragdolled through the air. They slammed into the ground, crying out in sheer pain. The fight wrapped up instantly. Su Ming flashed a confident smile. Honestly, not a terrible showcase for a brand new toy. Squirming in the dirt, Yang Ding stared up with absolute horror, plastering his face. He instantly recognized the flex. Telekinetic blade control, but that made zero sense. His mind short-circuited as the weapon floated right above his throat, rotating with pure lethal intent. That was strictly endgame magic. There was no way a beginner blade master could execute a trick like that. Unbothered, Su Ming mentally rolled back the tape on how he scored this crazy power. He looted a telekinesis scroll right after deleting that elite goblin boss. Then he activated his ridiculously overpowered cheat. By triggering Universal Ascension, he essentially hacked the item. He took that absolute garbage teardrop and evolved it into a literal god-level strike. The insanely high stats weren't even the best part. It was the ultimate disguise, matching his fake swordsman aesthetic flawlessly. Hiding his ridiculously rare mythic class was still his top priority, but quickly his focus snapped back to the actual treasure. Beating that promotion quest actually rewarded him with a map leading to a highly classified vault. Looming over his whimpering haters, he summoned the cryptic coordinates onto a blazing gold holographic screen. But the second the system loaded, all of Su Ming's cool guy energy completely evaporated. He was visibly stunned, jaw practically hitting the dirt. He glared at the prompt, totally at a loss for words. The secret stash pinged an exact location straight back to Red Rock Cave. Section 2. His irritation spiked instantly. "Are you kidding me? I have to drag myself back to that absolute nightmare?" Then things got even sketchier. The interface displayed a super weird subtext, goblins, trade, and life. Complete nonsense to him. Flash over to 11:30 in the morning. Miles away in a different zone of the woods, a trio of girls were totally hyping each other up. Riding the high of a solid victory, they had just flatlined a giant monster. One of the players already flexing level 7 exhaled heavily, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. Her duo partner spit straight facts though. They barely made it out alive. And it was entirely because of their 7-star carry, a girl rocking mint green hair named Fen Fen. She literally put the whole squad on her back for that raid. With the boss finally deleted, one of the girls sprinted over to snatch the drops, absolutely buzzing. Fen Fen, holding the undeniable MVP title, pivoted toward. Glancing over at her crewmate, she insisted she was 100% locked and loaded. But literally a heartbeat later, Fen Fen's expression morphed into absolute dread. Her eyes darted around the zone, totally freaked out. Their third-party member, the chick who just ran off to snag the drops, was straight up gone. Pure panic set in while Fen Fen frantically searched the empty space. The monster's remains were already glitching into pixels, yet her best friend was a total ghost. Zero signs of a struggle, zero footprints, just nothing. She had literally just been standing there a microsecond ago. Suddenly, the horrifying truth smacked her right in the face. Her pupils dilated in sheer shock, and a spine-chilling shriek shattered the dead silence of the woods. Cut back to Suman. His ultra-rare golden blueprint just decoded a seriously messed-up lore-drop goblin biology. The backstory was insanely grim. It detailed these gremlins lurking in pitch-black underground clans totally controlled by ruthless warlords and spellcasters. The game system didn't sugarcoat a thing. To multiply these creeps would basically kidnap any female entity they could get their grubby hands on. It even flashed some super graphic holograms of fellow players getting snatched up. Suman physically cringed. Disgusted by how toxic the mob logic was in this universe, he snapped out of it, got totally dialed in, and chased down the map markers. A few minutes passed before a notification popped up confirming he hit the drop zone. Except there was literally zero going on, just an insanely thick, creepy stretch of trees. He scoped out the perimeter, genuinely baffled. The mini-map was practically screaming Red Rock Cave Phase 2, yet there wasn't a single opening anywhere in sight. Was the server lagging out? He stood dead in his tracks, trying to do the mental math. Out of nowhere, this insanely heavy mist swallowed the area, cutting his visibility to zero. Catching major red flags, Suman instantly popped his eye of perception skill. His sight dialed into high definition, cutting straight through the fake terrain. Bam, a gargantuan mutated rat boss was hiding right under his nose. The mutant flinched hard, knowing it just got totally exposed. Suman just cracked an arrogant smirk. It all clicked. The title of the dungeon was a massive troll, designed to keep rookies hunting for a literal hole in the mountain. The actual gateway wasn't some basic cavern. It was this exact mirage, cloaked from the naked eye and tanked by the rodent boss. Smashing the magic barrier to pieces, Suman uncovered the legit route, a massive vertical drop going straight down. He threw himself directly into the abyss. Halfway down the plunge, turns out the mob was pumping out smoke to act as a smokescreen for their front door. He nailed a superhero, landing right inside a colossal underground base. With an absolute poker face, he locked onto a solo gremlin lookout, but kept his weapon holstered. Wiping out even a single scrub would pull massive aggro, calling the entire hive down on his head. He needed to keep his eyes on the prize. He was strictly here to secure the bag. But as he crept further into the shadows, he nearly tripped over Fen Fen's wiped-out avatar. She definitely got jumped the millisecond she clipped through the vapor trap. Suman winced, totally grossed out. These freaks were exactly as toxic as the wiki claimed. Right on cue, absolutely frantic shrieks bounced off the cavern walls. Just up the path, another rookie rocking a short purple bob was totally boxed in by a savage mob. She still had health left, and a super ruthless big brain tactic flashed through Suman's head. He could totally use her to draw their aggro while he speed ran the treasure chests. He legit debated letting her take the L, reasoning it was a major skill issue on her part anyway for being too weak. Right as he pivoted to walk away, the girl shrieked a final desperate SOS, begging for a carry and swearing to drop major cash. Then she dropped an absolute nuke. Her older sister was literally the vice president of the megacorp Yan Nan group. Suman's eyes practically popped out of his skull. He instantly recognized her player profile. In that exact microsecond, the monsters completely dove at the panicking girl. Suman went demon mode. He chucked his blade, sending it spinning through the air like a buzzsaw, leaving sick neon red light trails. It crashed into the dirt, knocking the creeps back with a massive shockwave. He parkoured right over the stunned mobs, dropping down inches away from Yan Yuning. Without missing a beat, he activated his sword control ultimate. The weapon zipped right back into his grip, radiating an insanely overpowered ruby aura. He fully charged a heavy slash, letting the combo rip. Except instead of a bloodbath, a blinding flashbang of pure light completely nuked the cave exactly like he calculated. He remembered the meta. These filthy green mobs shared one fatal flaw. They were absolutely terrified of blinding light. Not wasting a single second, Su Ming snatched the shell-shocked Yan Yuning by the arm and yanked her to her feet. He had already calculated the play. As long as he held back from actually catching, the stun grenade would only scramble their pathing without activating their lethal berserker state. The duo instantly bolted for the safe zone. Peeking over his shoulder, Su Ming saw exactly what he predicted. Those flashbang freaks were completely lost in the saw. Catching her breath, a flustered Yuning stuttered out a timid thank you, her cheeks burning red. Right then it clicked in Su Ming's head. The picture. The facial recognition matched perfectly. This girl actually was the little sister of the legendary Yang Lan. But honestly, he could not care less. Giving her the absolute cold shoulder, he entirely ignored her gratitude. Just as he pivoted to ditch her, Yuning panicked, frantically trying to bribe him with fat payouts. She even tried flexing her overpowered sibling's name once more, but Su Ming ruthlessly shut that desperate negotiation down. He flat out warned her to be to worry about making it out of this death trap breathing before making promises. Tears welling up, she pleaded with him to let her tag along. Su Ming served her an ice-cold reality check. He already pulled off one rescue mission, and her zero damage output would only hold him back. But despite catching that absolute stray, he pulled up his loot radar, only to find her stubbornly trailing his footsteps. Treating her like an NPC, he focused his vision entirely on a pulsing beacon ahead. The literal jackpot was sitting right beneath his boots. While a sweaty Yuning frantically watched the tree line for fresh mob spawn, Su Ming got his hands dirty. A few seconds later, jackpot. He ripped a massive silver tier loot crate straight from the dirt. Sure, the wiki said silver was the absolute ceiling for a beginner zone, but he was about to completely shatter the system limits using his busted universal ascension trait. The second he activated the ultimate buff, the massive box exploded in a retina-burning aura of pure gold. Yuning froze in her tracks, utterly flabbergasted. Su Ming confidently grabbed his mutated reward. He had just brute-forced a legendary low-tier gold chest into existence. Everyone knew these drops were basically cracked lottery tickets boasting insanely bloated RNG rates for game-breaking artifacts, top-tier abilities, or mythic armor sets. Flashing a smug grin, he ripped the seal open, praying to the gacha gods for a god-tier roll. Yuning shielded her eyes as a radiant shockwave blew the lid off. Two distinct objects floated upward. A masterfully crafted heavy-duty pauldron alongside a glowing manuscript radiating holy energy. A digital prompt materialized to confirm his drops. One fragment of the infamous Shadow Current armor packed with a specialized tome meant strictly for a soul healer. Su Ming swiped through his legendary loot stats, but the dopamine rush vanished in a heartbeat. The letdown was brutally heavy. The defensive gear was absolutely solid, but he groaned in frustration, realizing that the Platinum Tier Magic Tome was literal trash for his offensive DPS build. Catching his tilted expression, Yuning shyly piped up, hinting that the system might have tailored the loot drops specifically because of her proximity. Su Ming gave her a wildly skeptical glare, until she finally spilled the tea, her face completely crimson. She had literally just awakened, as a ridiculously rare 7-star soul healer. That insane flex left Su Ming totally dumbstruck. A split second later, a digital bell echoed in his head. Yang Yuning had officially locked into his co-op squad, officially crowning him as the shot caller. But while they were chilling on the completely opposite side of the map, the vibe turned incredibly sinister. An innocent rookie just got brutally sent to the lobby by a rogue player. A glowing holographic screen floated above the murderer, broadcasting his twisted mission. A savage rank-up trial that demanded the fresh blood of 50 different players. His current kill streak sat at a menacing 33. After dusting his helpless target, the psycho from Wujing Academy flashed a sick, sadistic smile as his eyes hunted for fresh meat. His lethal gaze snapped straight onto Yi Yao. Drenched in crimson and practically vibrating with pure, unadulterated fury, she absolutely refused to just roll over and be his next victim. Channeling her dark arts, she ripped a bone-crushing undead knight right out of the soil. Till absolute pandemonium was infecting the entire server. Right at 12:30 p.m., a catastrophic shockwave detonated from beneath the earth, sending a panic-stricken Yi Yao sprinting for absolute survival. She somehow managed to juke the chaos, frantically clawing her way up a jagged vertical rock wall, until she dragged herself onto a claustrophobic little outcropping. She huddled in the shadows, holding her breath and scanning the dirt below, putting all her energy into simply outliving this nightmarish bloodbath. Unfortunately, that bloodthirsty Wujing assassin was already sweeping the exact sector right beneath her boots. Her flawless hide-and-seek play instantly crumbled the second her boots slid on the wet stone, sending a tiny cascade of pebbles clattering downward. The killer violently whipped his head upward, his predatory stare piercing straight through the darkness to pinpoint her exact location. Moving like a literal glitch, he parkoured up the sheer cliff face in a blink, slamming down directly in front of a paralyzed Yi Yao. Zero hesitation. He ripped his colossal blade through the air with lethal intent. Yi Yao practically broke her own ankles dodging the fatal blow, but the steel still clipped her shoulder, tearing open a vicious bleeding gash. The killer nailed a flawless landing on the razor-edge cliff, genuinely shocked this fragile girl was still breathing. He ruthlessly mocked her, complaining she was dragging out the inevitable. But, hey, he gave credit where it was due. She had some slick moves, so maybe Shuangjing Academy wasn't a complete dumpster fire after all. Bleeding and seething with rage, Yi Jiao screamed at him. Why the hell was some punk from the rival Wujing Academy crashing her dungeon just to butcher innocent players? The invader just flashed a twisted psychopathic smirk and shrugged. It wasn't that deep. With a flick of his wrist, he projected his glowing system interface. The holographic screen spelled out his sick motive, his level 10 class advancement quest. Literally, Yi Jiao went ice cold. The psycho casually explained that going on a massive killing spree in his hometown's dungeon would bring way too much heat. So, he chartered a whole private jet and flew across the map just to treat their zone like his personal hunting ground. "Don't cry to me," he scoffed, his eyes dripping with contempt. "Blame your garbage-tier academy for being the absolute easiest prey in the region." Roaring that her school was pathetically soft, he lunged forward like a bullet. Panicking Yi Jiao slammed her hands down desperately, summoning a skeletal warrior to soak up the fatal blow. But the meat shield was an absolute joke. The assassin cackled, treating her pathetic summon like it was made of wet tissue paper. With one brutally vicious swing, he shattered the undead guard into dust, not losing a single frame of momentum as he barreled down on the defenseless girl. The Wujing combatant flashed a predatory grin. Game over. He instantly popped his ultimate execution skill, a spiraling crimson vortex of pure slaughter, known as the Flying Blood Blade Stab. Milliseconds before that deadly edge ripped through her, a glowing emerald arrow shrieked out of the tree line, aggressively deflecting the killing blow. Robbed of his kill, the psycho roared with pure fury, sweeping his terrifying gaze across the shadows to lock on to the sniper. Boom! A full squad of students blasted through the thick foliage, crashing the party. Their frontliner Yan Shi aggressively planted himself between the assassins. The cavalry had finally touched down. Her squad was fully assembled and ready to throw hands. Yan Shi wildly pulled back his brilliantly glowing bowstring, deadlocked onto the enemy, and absolutely ready to start blast. Cut to another sector of the forest at high noon. Su Min had just wrapped up a brutally efficient grinding session. He casually fed his mountain of looted fragments into the interface. Class change mission absolutely demolished. He had formally broken past his limits, ascending straight to the mythic tier sword god. The level up unleashed a crazy surge in his base stats, instantly dumping 10 bonus points into every single attribute across the board. His core mythical sword body talent wildly mutated, instantly multiplying his raw physical damage by 2. Agility, mastery, pure unfiltered kinetic power. Every single metric was permanently spiked. Su Min was practically vibrating with pure untouchable main character energy, totally hyped to solo wipe the hidden dungeon boss. Pivoting his focus back to Yan Yuning, he casually chucked the ultra-rare soul healer skill scroll at her like it was pocket lint. The system chimed as she consumed the loot. A blinding angelic aura completely swallowed her silhouette as the spell hardwired into her brain. The busted stats violently flashed across the holographic panel. Soul reinforcement, a high-grade premium platinum drop that was legitimately god-tier loot. The second it fires off, it torches soul energy to violently inflate their experience gain by an insane 200%. And the wildest part? It was an area of effect party buff. Su Min and Yan Yuning were absolutely paralyzed jaws practically scraping the dirt. Su Min was completely stunned by her broken RNG. She had literally just manifested a borderline illegal poor leveling cheat code out of thin air. Realizing he was now staring at a literal walking XP glitch, a highly calculating villainous smirk slowly spread across his face. He instantly did a total 180, officially agreeing to hard. Yan Yuning was hyped out of her mind. Having a ridiculously overpowered tank who could casually, it was infinitely safer than depending on those shady overpriced mercenaries her older sister kept throwing bags of cash at. Su Min groaned internally. He absolutely despised those toxic pay-to-win trust fund kids who just swiped credit cards to get ahead. But he wasn't an idiot. There was zero chance he was walking away from an exploit that ridiculous. Out of nowhere, an urgent direct message from Yi Jiao violently pinged Su Min's interface, demanding his immediate attention. Catching the frantic alert, he cocked an eyebrow. Why the hell was she spamming him in the dead? Cutting back to the bloody front line, the invading psycho had gone totally unhinged. He was brutally hunting down Yi Jiao's backup, systematically deleting her squad mates from the map. Amidst the sheer carnage, Yan Shi desperately scrambled to launch a counteroffensive. He let loose a wildly aimed shot, but his brain short-circuited trying to process how the dude effortlessly sidestepped his ultimate attack. The psycho didn't even flinch, immediately bulldozing straight toward Yancy and his squadmate. Panic spiked through their veins as that absolute unit barreled forward, wielding a gigantic broadsword. He ripped out his signature aerial blood slash one more time. Kaboom! A brutal strike right to the dome, wiping out the teammate in an instant. Watching their crew get permanently deleted, a sickening wave of hopelessness swallowed Yancy, and this freak of nature was playing in a completely different league. Yancy frantically scanned the battlefield. His entire party was totally vaporized. Ye was completely mind-blown that Wujing Academy actually produced such nightmarish predators. But then the puzzle pieces slammed together. Yancy suddenly recalled the classified files he had skimmed. The rumors were about an insanely gifted blade master from Buyun City, the absolute talk of the town. Li Chen Wang, a flawless 10-star prodigy, rocking the ultra-rare Sword Maniac hidden class. The executioner hoisted his heavy blade, slowly stalking toward them. It was definitely him. A twisted smirk crept across Li Chen Wang's face as he closed in for the kill. Noticing only 2 victims remained, he literally started whining about how trash his farming efficiency was today. The maniac had only bagged a pathetic 35 bodies so far. Yancy was next on the chopping block. Tightly gripping his longbow, a brutal reality check hit him hard. An elite sniper is basically dead meat if they get cornered. Right behind him, Ye Yao delivered the absolute worst news. Her mana pool was completely dry. Throwing up defensive summons was officially impossible. Voice cracking, Yancy desperately asked if their backup was actually going to show up. Ye Yao completely panicked, swiping frantically to pull up her system dashboard. Total radio silence from Su Ming, 0 pings. The terrifying truth smashed into her like a freight train. Nobody was coming to the rescue. Li Chen Wang threw his head back and laughed ruthlessly, clowning on their total despair. Then he exploded into a hyperspeed dash, locking onto the archer to permanently shut down his annoying chip damage. But in a literal fraction of a second, Ye Yao hurled her own body in front of Yancy to tank the fatal blow. But she was way too slow. Li Chen Wang cleared the gap in a heartbeat. Violently shattering Ye Yao's staff and slashing a brutal gash across her, he spat at her pathetic courage, roaring that squishy trashes have no right playing savior. Just as he hoisted his executioner's blade to finish her off, a glowing longsword plummeted out of the sky like a literal meteor, deflecting the lethal strike with an ear-shattering crash. Gasping for air, Ye Yao heard someone call out her name from behind, and instantly identified that familiar voice. Su Ming confidently stepped out of the shadows, announcing to the whole battlefield that he was fully capable of carrying this entire squad. Pushing forward, intense flashbacks crashed over him. In his previous timeline, she had been the one to pull him from the brink of death. Ye Yao's eyes blew wide open in pure shock. She had literally begged him to stay far away from this massive death trap. But Su Ming didn't care, marching fiercely straight toward the psycho. In this life, there was absolutely 0 chance he'd let a single scratch land on her. He instantly activated his telekinetic blade mastery, magnetically snapping. Li Chen Wang's smirk morphed into a nasty snarl as he recognized the newcomer. This was the mythic 10-star sword controller. Seeing Ye Yao bleeding on the ground completely set Su Ming off his veins, pumping with pure unfiltered. Without wasting a breath, Su Ming blitzed forward for a ruthless head-on. Ye Yao and Yancy were glued to the spot, spectating the absolute savagery of the shockwaves exploding from the 2 titans left them completely mind-blown. Yancy's brain started spinning. If he could just provide some decent sniper cover, they actually had a shot at clearing this boss. Out of nowhere, a super comforting golden aura washed over their bodies, literally stitching their brutal wounds back together. They whipped their heads around and locked eyes with Yang Yuning. Dropping a quick peace sign, she introduced herself as Su Ming's duo partner, an ultra-rare soul healer. But dumping that massive burst of life force totally drained her stamina, so she collapsed on the ground to breathe. Yancy's jaw dropped. Having a dedicated medic in this nightmare was a massive game changer. Panting heavily, Yang Yuning confessed she was still a total rookie with her powers and desperately needed a solid minute to regen her mana. Ye Yao was completely baffled. Didn't Su Ming swear up and down that he was a strict lone wolf? Yet here he was casually flexing a pocket healer. Just seconds later, Yang Yuning rebooted her healing matrix, topping up their health bars to full. Yancy frantically urged her to speed it up. Letting Su Ming solo a literal raid boss was an absolute death, but Yang Yuning just flashed a cocky smirk. "Chill out," she said. "Su Ming is built completely different." Back in the meat grinder, Su Ming was an absolute menace, showering Li Chen Wang with a hurricane of heavy strikes, forcing the psycho to desperately backpedal. Sweating bullets as he dodged for his literal life, Lee Chen Wong's playful attitude vanished. This kid wasn't just some average brawler. His movement, after violently punting the villain across the dirt, Su Ming suddenly slammed on the brakes, planting his feet firmly. Lee Chen Wong just wiped his mouth and burst into psychotic laughter. Wiping the smirk off his face, he realized this kid hit like an absolute He declared, "We finished this today. It's me, the 10-star Blade Psycho of Buiwan City, against you, Su Ming, Shuangjing Academy's 10-star telekinetic swordsman." Hearing that infamous title stopped Su Ming dead in his tracks. Memories flooded back. This dude was an absolute legend in his past life, even though they never actually clashed. But in this timeline, fate fast-tracked their collision. With zero hesitation, he launched himself forward, eager to see whose steel was truly superior. Both warriors exploded into a blinding frenzy of slashes at the exact same time. Amidst the shower of sparks, Lee Chen Wong smoothly ducked a lethal swing, vaulted backward, and immediately spammed his ultimate combo, the Crimson Blade Hover Strike. Watching the glowing red daggers rocket toward his face, Su Ming just scoffed. What a cheap trick. Moving like a blur, he whipped his sword around, effortlessly parrying the relentless barrage. Lee Chen Wong flashed a wicked grin. Gotcha. The MC had stepped completely blindly into his web. With a snap, he activated Phase 2, sending his weapon orbiting the protagonist like a crazed buzzsaw. He gloated that the residual aura from his blood strike generates a gravitational cage, totally paralyzing his prey. Going for the brutal instant kill, he was dead certain it was lights out until our MC sidestepped the death blow with literal god-tier reflexes. Furious Lee Chen Wong doubled down with a vicious follow-up, but the kid casually phased out of the way again. Smirking, the MC decided it was his turn to play. He fired up his telekinesis, yanking his fallen sword straight back into his palm. Gripping the hilt tight, he locked eyes with the Psycho. "Let's see you tank this without a weapon." In a flash, he ripped a catastrophic slash right across his rival's chest. Crimson erupted from his arm as the razor-sharp steel carved deep into his flesh. But ignoring the agonizing pain, Lee Chen Wong went totally feral. Blinded by fury, he snatched his weapon and dive-bombed the hero, banking his entire life on the gamble that the MC was wide open. Detecting the desperate ambush, our MC instantly triggered his divine shadow step, effortlessly ghosting through every single swing. Watching his blade cut nothing but air, Lee Chen Wong spammed the 5 chaotic shadow blades technique, but it was totally useless. The hero kept dancing around the lethal slashes with broken agility. Lee Chen Wong's brain short-circuited as he realized the kid's speed had just completely leveled up. Before the shock could even set in, the MC teleported into his face with a savage fake apology, casually revealing that his sword was already secured in his hand. At that exact second, Yansei and Yi Yao finally finished their recovery phase. The split second Yansei snapped back to reality. He dashed toward the battlefield, screaming that the cavalry was here and begging Su Ming to hold the line. But when he finally slid into the combat zone, his jaw practically hit the floor. The deathmatch was already a total wrap. Lee Chen Wong was folded on the concrete, absolutely trashed, while our MC strolled right past his body like an absolute boss. Staring in disbelief, Yi Yao whispered that Su Ming was insanely cracked. Yansei, visibly trembling, stuttered that while they were busy playing catch-up with their healing, this guy had literally soloed a raid boss-level threat. Out of nowhere, Yansei shrieked in absolute terror, warning everyone to watch their backs. The hero snapped around only to see Lee Chen Wong rising from the dead to launch a grimy blindside assault. The Psycho cackled, bragging that he finally caught the kid slipping. The cheap shot caught the entire squad totally off guard. Yi Yao screamed her lungs out as Lee Chen Wong carved into the hero's back, popping his ultimate ability. The torrential forest swiftblade erupting with a blinding crimson shockwave that completely swallowed the arena. Securing the critical hit, Lee Chen Wong glared into the protagonist's eyes and welcomed him straight into his execution zone. Yi Yao sprinted toward the deadly energy field to pull Su Ming out, but Yansei locked onto her wrist, dragging her back and shouting that rushing in there would be pure suicide. Frantic, she swore she'd drag him out of there, even if it cost her her life. Out of nowhere, the MC's voice rumbled from deep within the death trap, barking at her to pay attention. Catching his voice through the chaos, Yi Yao screamed his name, but he shut her down instantly, demanding she stay completely out of the blast zone. Trapped inside the kill zone, Lee Chen Wong spammed an absolute hurricane of brutal strikes. Tanking this endless combo, our guy's body got absolutely shredded, leaving his HP practically touching zero. But somehow he refused to drop. Hurling skill after skill, Lee Chen Wong screamed in pure frustration, mind-blown that this dude was still breathing after eating that much DPS. Suddenly, a chill whisper brushed the back of his neck, asking if he honestly believed those strikes actually landed. Completely thrown off, Lee Chen-wong snapped to the horrifying realization that the voice wasn't in front of him. At that exact second, the MC's silhouette directly ahead began to glitch out and dissolve into thin air. Boiling over with absolute rage, he realized he'd been dumping his cooldowns into a literal phantom. The illusion shattered completely. As the real MC slid out from the pitch-black shadows directly behind him, weapon gripped tight. Frosty as hell, he broke it down, explaining he finally cracked the code, admitting that no matter how hard he racked his brain, he never guessed a basic sword user could flex this kind of insane tech. Right on cue, he triggered the 5-piece passive of the Shadow Sword loadout, a low-tier platinum armor set. A glowing system prompt flashed Darkness Surge, locking in a massive buff that strapped extra damage to every single blade attack, with a sheer dark element that totally ignored physical armor. On top of that, the set's Shadow Clone ability spawned a dummy target to absorb aggro, and if it caught a strike while triggered, it auto-casted a nasty counter/clapping back with 50% of base damage. Catching a glimpse of the MC's completely stacked build, Lee Chen-wong started sweating buckets, stammering that full gear sets literally didn't drop in the noob-tier dungeon, which only left one insane possibility. This guy had already knocked out an exclusive secret quest. Unfazed, our guy casually confirmed he'd already wrapped up his first-class advancement mission. Without missing a beat, he locked his edge dead on Lee Chen-wong and prepped a lethal swing. Watching that deadly execution incoming, Lee Chen-wong, drowning in panic and pure fury, instantly realized the MC's speed massively outscaled his own. The blade violently impaled him, bursting out his spine as a massive spray of crimson painted the floor. While carving through him, the MC ruthlessly promised to end his entire run. He dropped a vicious chain of cuts, but mid-combo, Lee Chen-wong yanked out a glowing relic and lobbed it into the air. The second it popped, a massive flashbang engulfed the whole battlefield. Throwing his arm up, our guy squinted against the blinding whiteout. Watching from the sidelines, Yanzi and Yan Juning locked onto the drop, their jaws literally hitting the dirt. Yanzi instantly recognized it. A top-tier emergency eject tool, a god-tier consumable that easily auctions for hundreds of thousands of adventurer coins. That kind of luxury loot is a total myth in a basic zone like this. But Lee Chen-wong didn't waste a millisecond. He already burnt the escape token to warp right out of danger. Watching the coward piece out, our guy just smirked. The rival city really dumped a ridiculous budget to bubble wrap their golden 10-star prodigy, sparing absolutely zero expense. Fast forward a few hours, we pivot right back to the director's headquarters, skimming over the server's live analytics. An admin totally froze. A massive spike in the raw data looked incredibly sus. Right behind her desk, the boss was going to town on a massive bowl of takeout ramen. Chewing through his mouthful, he casually checked if the live leaderboards were fully compiled yet. Not even close, she muttered, glaring intensely at her monitor. But the death feeds are completely broken. A whole squad got heavily deleted at the 9 o'clock sector between 12 and 12:30. The director just brushed it off. Dungeons are brutal. Did some noobs aggro a boss ma? That's the craziest part, she snapped back. The combat logs literally prove they were completely wiped by another player's kit. And the digital footprint did not match our server. That finally made the headmaster drop his fork, his gaze sharpening into a deadly glare. The rival district was playing dirty again. Lock down those data trails immediately, he barked. Every rookie tutorial zone was an all-out sprint to see which faction could speed-run the final clear. And historically, Shuangjing Academy was ranked absolute trash tier, basically free XP for the heavy hitters to farm. Snapping back to reality, he demanded a live status update on the freshmen. The aide swept the holomap. "We are looking cracked, sir. Our kids just locked down the majority of the warp gates." The glitchy cam footage shows the heavyweights flexing their power. They are grouping up into massive strike teams to completely bulldoze the endgame stages. Spearheading the vanguard is the Sang Dynasty golden boy Sang Tang that totally busted 8-star arcane hammer main. The headmaster smirked at the monitors. Exactly as predicted, that boy is an absolute monster. He rapidly crunched the numbers in his head. Sang Tang hit level 6 literally hours ago. The vanilla tutorial boss is a level 12 threat. Running a squad that massive, he figured the prodigy had to be knocking on level 10 by now. Hopefully he would obliterate the big bad soon and clinch the trophy for their school. Out of nowhere, a tech intern screamed that the real-time leaderboards were finally online. The old man bolted to the desk. The kid jammed his finger against the glass, visibly shaking with hype. "You called it. Sang Tang is level 9, basically breathing down the neck of 10. He is completely deadlocked for first place globally. The rival is Yancy, yeah." The headmaster absolutely nailed it. The intern nodded vigorously. And scanning second and third place hot on their trail are two powerhouse girls. The necromancer Yao, sitting pretty at level 7, and the phantom cleric Yan Juning, chilling at level 8. The aide lit up. The female roster is hard carrying this season, but the boss just scowled. Do you see Su-min anywhere on that ladder? The assistant furiously scrolled. He is completely MIA from the top brackets. Force refresh the page, the director roared. Where the hell is he hiding? What are his current stats? Another tech ripped open the main character's personal data file and choked. Got him. He is level 2. You could hear a pin drop in that room. Judging by the timestamps the intern stuttered, he has not gained a single pixel of XP since claiming first blood. Smash cut straight back to the kill zone. Our boy is towering over the dissolving carcass of a gigantic elite saber-tooth. The millisecond that monster flatlined, his experience bar went completely supernova. He skyrocketed instantly to level 14. Holographic alerts spammed his retina. Not only did he massively power level, but he also triggered the ultra-rare level 14 cosmetic gear. Yao and Yancy were standing inches away, absolutely speechless. Yao popped open her character sheet, realizing she just hit level 8. This is completely cracked, she squealed. We have been grinding for literally 2 hours, and we are basically speedrunning the entire tier list. Yancy popped off. I just crossed level 10. I am legit buff enough to solo the final room right now. But honestly, it is all because of Yan Juning and her insane XP multiplier, he confessed. That aura is so busted. Yan Juning, currently sitting at level 9, flashed a modest smile. Do not give me the credit. You need to thank Su-min. He is the one who tossed me that god tier manual to begin with. Yao is straight up losing her mind, hyping the whole squad up like they are the newest esports legends. Infinite X, P farming check. Yancy dropping massive burst damage from the backline check. Her personal undead squad soaking up all the aggro, double check. But the ultimate cheat code. Having an absolute raid boss like Su-min running the playbook. Our guy keeps it completely icy though, telling them to dial it back. Stop gassing me up, he mutters, waving off the praise. I am literally just here for the free loot. Yao absolutely refuses to buy that fake humility. She fires right back, reminding him that if he had not clutched that one fight, Liu Chen Wang, Flashy Blade would have turned her and Yancy into absolute mincemeat. She plays back the absolute masterclass of him, completely clowning on that encounter. With their team chemistry hitting maximum efficiency right now, she is dead set on the fact that they could no-hit the vanilla stage boss. You are entirely correct, Su-min finally admits. But we did not drop in here to farm low-level trash. He slowly reveals an ultra-rare glowing artifact key. We are going straight for the secret boss, an enemy completely above their pay grade. Our boy raises the Aqua Crest key, the shiny new drop they just ripped from that elite monster. With the artifact glowing in his grip, he spills the tea. You cannot just casually stroll in to awaken the hidden titan of this starter zone. The squad has to crack a trio of system-generated brain teasers and scavenge some highly specific relics. It is time to get big-brained. Dang! The initial cipher blazes across his digital display. When the shimmering lunar blade hovers near the coast, emerald tides divide, while crimson plating slumbers deep inside the freezing chasm. Right on schedule. A ghostly silver crescent materializes up in the heavens. Su-min zeroes in on the holographic marker in a heartbeat. It all comes down to perfect placement. Knowing this beginner realm completely lacks dynamic weather mechanics, he deduces there is exactly one location where the plant life organically curves into a half moon. The concealed overlord is lurking, directly under the glassy water. Wham! He marches the crew right up to the misty shoreline. The second enigma pops off. Aquatic depths shift to fog. Led by iris blooms buried in submerged dirt, the Guardian honors the primordial vow. He smirks, fully aware he has been playing 5D chess since minute 1. He whips out the exact floral drop he swiped from the Zone 8 mob and seamlessly merges it with the Aqua Crest. 2 cleared, just 1 left. The ultimate hint shimmers into existence. Angle the astral-etched key to mirror the bedrock of the basin. 9 ripples spiral downward to the foundation. The Templar leans his skull against his blade, anticipating the exact beam of dawn to shatter the shadowed depths. Following the walkthrough down to the literal pixel, Su-min triggers the sequence. The artifact instantly erupts with a blinding aura. The rest of his party is standing there absolutely gagged, fully mind-blown that he just effortlessly speedran those impossible riddles. Out of nowhere, swoosh, a colossal vortex violently rips the lake apart. The squad stumbles backward as the currents thrash and rage. Inch by inch, a gigantic broadsword erupts from the dead center of the maelstrom. As the weapon climbs, a towering dreadnought shatters the surface, clutching the hilt. His demonic voice shakes the very earth bound by the sacred vow, awakened by the astral gleam. The absolute millisecond this juggernaut drops, Su Ming's interface gets completely nuked with screaming crimson hazard signals. Enemy locked, the Abyssal Sentinel, the Forgotten Paladin. 0 seconds left to stand around. Su Ming instantly rapid-fires party requests to Yancy and Jigo, securing his role as the squad leader. Form up right, freaking now. As the players scramble into position, the global prompt blares that the secret Overlord encounter is officially live. Fast forward 15 minutes. Su Ming and his gang are straight up shivering inside a random patch of shrubbery. Yancy gives him a massive side-eye. Are we absolutely positive about this? Is camping in the bushes really the meta right now? Jigayo chimes in, flashing an incredibly strained, terrified grimace. She begs them to attempt literally any other strategy. Su Ming, however, leaves them entirely on red. His gaze is deadlocked onto the boss, who is currently bulldozing the entire timberland like a derailed bullet train, obliterating every single tree in its path. He gestures forward. Get a load of that. Look at his insane mobility. His velocity is pure nightmare fuel. Do you honestly believe we can frontline that monster? That beast's cavalry sits at a disgusting 500 base movement. The Forgotten Paladin is capped at level 19. Peep these stats: 301 strength, 250, constitution 102, agility alongside 10 for both spirit and luck. And let me remind you, that galloping speed is easily pushing a flat 500 plus. Plus he is packing a tier 5 heavy armor mastery buff. The teammates scan the data panel and instantly break into a cold, panicked sweat. Su Ming hits them with the brutal reality check. Even if we somehow stacked the sprint speed of all 4 of us combined, we wouldn't even clock half of that freakish speed. Out of nowhere, blood-curdling shrieks rip through the forest. A bunch of randoms were scrambling like absolute cockroaches, shrieking their lungs out, totally unable to process the living nightmare their brains were just straight up glitching out. A level 19 secret boss manifesting into reality out of thin air. Yeah, that's a guaranteed game over. The Lost Knight was an absolute juggernaut, slicing through squads like warm butter, while the whole woods echoed with their desperate dying wails. Chilling a safe distance away, our guy's crew just watched the absolute bloodbath go down. Shaking like a leaf with his eyes blown wide, Yan Shi muttered that this was literally the 3rd squad of nearby players to get brutally one-shot. Yang Yuning was quaking too, knowing their time was rapidly running out. They were the absolute madmen who spawned this raid boss, and it was go time. Right on schedule, Yi Jiao dashed up from the back line, gasping for air but confirming she nailed his strat down to the pixel. They had drained the squad's entire stockpile of mana pots just to rig up this insane delayed death trap. Catching that, he hit her with a solid approving nod. 0 time to stall. He snapped commands at Yan Shi and Yang Yuning to initiate the play. They hollered back and immediately locked into their spots. Creeping forward, his brain was firing on all cylinders. Even back in his past life, he was never unhinged enough to try and solo the tutorial zone's hidden boss. Even stacked with years of veteran mechanics, locking horns with this early game nightmare was a massive blind spot for him. Literally 0 fresh spawns would dare trigger this apocalypse. 5 seconds after getting their starter stats, it was instant deletion. Plus, since this zone is a one-and-done deal, nobody actually knew the monster's real moveset, only sketchy rumors from ancient forum threads he'd burned into his brain. But even he couldn't predict the boss would be rocking a beast with a speed stat of 500. That flipped the whole script. To drop this guy, they had to rip him off that mount first. The second everyone locked in, Yan Shi popped his volley cooldown. He dumped an absolute blizzard of arrows, launching a lethal barrage whistling straight for the boss's dome. The Lost Knight barely even flinched, sweeping his greatsword to swat them away. The few stragglers that hit just dinged harmlessly off his plating. Absolute 0 damage, totally tanked by level 5 heavy armor mastery. Yan Shi sweated, realizing his DPS was doing literal chip damage. Then out of nowhere, a giant crimson UI alert flashed. The Guardian of the Lake had officially snapped at its aggro onto a fresh victim. Reading the momentum, the squad pivoted their strategy, holding down the high ground. Yan Shi screamed that he had successfully baited the monster's aggro. Catching the cue, Yang Yuning instantly popped her active skill. Off in the shadows, our boy slid right into the kill zone. A wicked little grin flashed on his face as he double-checked the combo. Step 1, Yan Shi kites the boss with sniper shots. Step 2, Yang Yuning blankets his rush path in heavy smoke. The mission blind the absolute hell out of him. It was a toxic little exploit they'd perfected down in the Goblin Run. Perfectly on frame, a suffocating black cloud swallowed the battlefield, leaving the raid boss totally blind. The Lost Knight started flailing his massive sword like a maniac, desperately hunting for a hitbox. Right as rotting bone hands erupted through the dirt, they clamped onto the beast's legs like a vice grip. Yi Jiao slammed her summon key at the absolute perfect millisecond. The ambush snapped shut, making the colossal monster stumble hard as it violently fought gravity. Yi Jiao just watched the whole play unfold, absolutely mind-blown. If our guy hadn't spoon-fed her the strategy, she never would have imagined you could layer low-tier summons into such a devious time delay trap. As the monstrous mount thrashed wildly, a fresh barrage of arrows shrieked through the air from afar. Yang Yuning blasted it with spirit-leeching magic, completely crippling its movement. The secret boss was officially trapped in the kill zone. Surveying the absolute mayhem, our boy stepped up, his gaze dead serious. Phase 3 was greenlit. The master plan? Pin the mount to the floor using Yi Jiao's skeletal snare, perfectly layered with Yang Yuning's heavy slow debuff. He knew he couldn't pull off this stunt alone. He actually needed his squad. Spotting the perfect window, he dashed behind the Lost Knight, locking him in a brutal grip and twisting with jaw-dropping torque. He violently yanked the boss right out of his saddle, slamming him into the dirt and roaring, "Get off your high horse!" After being an absolute menace for way too long, the knight crashed into the dust, but he sprang back to his feet in a flash. The furious boss locked a hollow, murderous glare dead onto our guy. Off in the brush, the squad was staying low, getting ready for the next play. Seeing the monster finally peeled away from his ride, Yang Yuning was absolutely buzzing. "We actually grounded him," she celebrated, but Yi Jiao immediately told them to stay frosty. This was literally just step 1. Everything was unfolding flawlessly, following the exact blueprint our main character mapped out 10 minutes ago. Back then, Yi Jiao was sweating bullets. "We're gonna burn through our entire mana pool. Just to ground him, we won't have a single drop left for the actual boss fight." Our guy just stared back, completely unfazed. "Doesn't matter, that's more than enough," he told her. Flashing a cocky smirk, he promised, "When the time comes, I'll carry the rest." Cutting back to the present, he calmly summoned his blade right out of his inventory. It was go time. He shifted into his stance, blasted off the ground like a missile, vowing to 1v1 this absolute monster. He crashed directly into the Lost Knight, sparking an absolute bloodbath. The boss fired back without missing a beat. Heavy steel violently clashed, showering the arena in sparks as they traded blistering combo strings. The sheer force of the shockwaves was totally insane, blasting outward so aggressively that his squad could feel the ground shaking all the way back in the safe zone. Witnessing the brutal clash, Yancy pushed forward and her nerves completely shot. She could clearly see this battle was turning way too lethal. She honestly couldn't believe Suman was actually trying to solo a top-tier secret boss. Refusing to be a bystander, she charged up her skills to back him up, but Yi Jiao immediately shut down her path. Flashing a totally chill smile, he told her to let the plan cook. Suman already called dibs on the main target, and the rest of them had their own mission to focus on. Meanwhile, our main character popped his divine shadow step, literally glitching around the Lost Knight. He shredded the enemy from every possible blind spot, furiously stacking up damage. But the monster was far from sluggish. It aggressively charged forward, desperate to counterattack. Our boy, locked in, perfectly parried the massive swing and instantly broke down the fight with ice-cold logic. Way too slow. He ripped open the boss's stat sheet. Everything was pretty average except for that movement speed. While mounted, this dude was pushing 500. Now, his agility completely tanked to a pathetic 55. That was his true base speed, without the ride. Catching on to this massive flaw, he instantly unleashed a ruthless horizontal slash. His blade carved deep across the knight's heavy chest plate, realizing right then that secret bosses were honestly kind of overhyped. He aggressively wound up for a brutal execution to close out the fight, but the enemy's absurdly thick armor completely ate the impact, even though every single strike was aggressively shredding the gear's durability. Suddenly, a bright red system alert flashed in his vision, warning that his weapon's durability was critically low at 7%. Our guy's expression darkened. His main blade was literally running on fumes, and that annoying heavy armor passive was massively nerfing his overall damage output. Out of nowhere, the Lost Knight finally made his counterplay. The beast snapped its head back to the drop zone, frantic eyes hunting for its stolen steed. Nothing but dead air. Our boy rode his blind spot, whispering absolute menace about his hijacked ride. That stallion was the boss's ultimate win condition, but tough luck, the crew was already miles away with the loot. Smash cut to the squad. They had this monstrous warhorse locked down, dragging it entirely off the murder. Yi Jiao practically put the beast in a headlock, screaming at it to chill out. "You are not going anywhere, big guy." Yancy barked at Yan Juning to relentlessly spam those hexes, begging for any status effect to nerf its speed. Yi Jiao flashed a cocky smirk, fully aware this little side hustle was the absolute carry. Su Ming handed down this exact blueprint. Roll the flashback. The second we strip this titan from his mount, I take the one-on-one. You all make absolutely sure his ride stays ghosted. Whipping back to real time, Su Ming rained down a hurricane of energy waves dead at the Lost Knight. Direct hits, but the Juggernaut just ate the damage, dragging itself forward before hoisting its greatsword to trigger Howling Water Blade. Launching a literal tidal wave of destruction at our guy, he casually glided past the shockwave, thinking, oh word, so the big guy actually has a moveset. He ghosted through the onslaught without breaking a sweat. The armored freak rushed in again, steel raised to execute. Su Ming punished the push with telekinesis, launching his blade to shred the enemy from 360 degrees. Infinite DPS. But right in the middle of his flex, a red warning popped. Weapon health flatlined at 3%. Ice cold, he ignored it. He relentlessly suffocated the knight's space, bullying the behemoth backward while scanning its defensive plating. Bleeding out the last drops of his sword's health on that thick metal was a straight-up throw. The breastplate was practically holding on by hopes and prayers. He carpet-bombed the boss from every angle, magically snapping the hilt back into his palm. Knuckles white, he rocketed forward. The Lost Knight deflected the strike, bypassed the guard, and plunged its greatsword brutally through Su Ming's torso. But the split second that steel connected our boy's silhouette started glitching out like a bad connection. A chilling whisper floated from the blind spot. Never fails. Tryhards, elite mobs, you all fall for it. That skewered corpse just a hollow decoy. It dissolved into pixels. The real Su Ming phased in right behind the Titan, his entire armor set glowing with maxed out stats. Basking in that godly damage buff, he pulled back for the ultimate strike, instantly popping his telekinesis skill. On command, the decoy's floating phantom blade ignited, unleashing a brutal 360-degree blender on the Lost Knight. The giant panicked him, flailing wildly to escape the meat grinder. But in a literal flash, our guy teleported into striking range, absolutely shattering the boss's defense. Defense shattered, he declared, absolute frost in his voice. Right on cue, a Crimson System warning hijacked his vision. Weapon health 0. The sword was officially dead weight. Zero hesitation, he popped Shadowblade, burying the final execution strike deep. GG, he whispered, completely unbothered. Hard cut to Shuangjing Academy. Director Wong marched into the command center. You could cut the anxiety with a knife. He was running seriously behind schedule, and some guy instantly fired off a sarcastic welcome party. Clocking the other bosses already huddled up and scheming, Wong kept his poker face, realizing he had missed the kickoff. A static-laced voice through the headset piped up, bragging that the rest of them were punctual. Wong was the lone slacker. Then Director Number 2 stepped in to roast him, taunting him, asking if he was stalling because his entire student roster was too chicken to aggro the final boss. Like clockwork, every single season, their victory screens wouldn't even start dropping until past 3 in the afternoon. A third hater jumped into the dog pile, loudly broadcasting that Shuangjing Academy was permanently hard stuck at the absolute bottom of the tier list. So honestly, who gave a damn if he showed up tardy? Wong clapped back instantly. He wasn't dragging his feet over some basic dungeon crawl. He was delayed crunching bizarre live analytics. Then he dropped a massive nuke on the room. Some rogue outsiders had officially cracked the firewall and hijacked his school's tutorial zone. The mystery killer was still at large. His tone turned icy, demanding to know if some rival student from the neighboring 3 cities was playing them. He pointed out that the combat logs screamed elite swordsmanship, dead giveaways that pointed straight at the golden boy of Bayan Academy. Li Chen Wang, the guy, literally known for his flawless blade work. Catching wind of this, the Bayan director fired right back, furious that Wang was tossing out wild zero evidence accusations. He fiercely defended his prodigy, swearing Li Chen was knee-deep in a final boss raid at their own dungeon, and was on track to secure a clear in less than 30 minutes. Hearing this, the other academy heads started shamelessly flexing. One bragged that Donglin already had 3 different elite squads speedrunning the final stage. Another gloated that Nangan Academy had shoved their boss straight into Phase 2. At this crazy pace, they were seconds away from triggering the completion alert. Director Wong just stood there, swallowing the bitter updates with a rock-solid poker face. Rival schools were practically sleepwalking through their boss fights, and the clock was mercilessly ticking down. Pulling a handful of tokens from his pocket, a dark shadow crossed his face. If they fumbled the first clear title this season, they would be reduced to just 2 pathetic tokens for the Tower Society, marking the worst record in their history. Hardening his glare, he gambled everything on the sole player currently breathing down the final boss's neck, Sang Tong. The entire academy's survival rested entirely on his shoulders. Meanwhile, deep inside the cursed zone, the Shuangjing crew was locked in a brutal, chaotic meat grinder alongside Sang Tong. The tension was absolutely suffocating. Sang Tong bellowed for a unified strike, commanding his squad to stop saving their cooldowns and spam every ultimate they possessed to nuke the final boss. They were up against the enraged Forest King, a massive level 15 monstrosity that was literally wiping the floor, with anyone foolish enough to step into its aggro radius unleashing absolute carnage. Amidst the slaughter, raw panic hijacked the squad. Several rookies started scrambling backward, shrieking in pure terror once they realized the insane stat gap. They were simply too underleveled to even dent its armor. Unfazed, Sangtong locked a deadly stare onto the Titan, clenching his jaw. "Nobody falls back," he roared. They hadn't bled this much just to rage quit now. Driven by a blazing obsession, he hollered that the ultimate first clear loot for this beginner dungeon belonged to him alone. Going head-to-head with the giant, Sangtong's brain flashed back to the frantic notifications from earlier texts from Xiaoman, desperately crying for rescue. He had frantically messaged back to find out what happened, questioning if Su Ming was the problem. Her reply confirmed that Su Ming had crossed the line. Right there, Sangtong demanded her exact coordinates, swearing he was rushing straight over to save her. Her final message was purely dripping with venom, begging him to make Su Ming pay in blood. That single flashback dumped gasoline on his fury. Sprinting directly into the beast's attack zone, he screamed that he would claim the grand prize and deliver brutal payback for Xiaoman. But the exact millisecond he hoisted his blade to execute the fatal blow, the towering monster began violently glitching, dissolving into pixel dust. Sangtong froze dead in his tracks, absolutely bewildered. Without warning, every single survivor trapped in the zone caught a global system ping. Stomachs dropped as the holographic text floated up. The hidden boss had been executed, sending congratulations to the squad that sniped the kill. This was followed by the broadcast hyping everyone up to prep for the ultimate victory lap. The camera brutally cuts over to Su Ming, standing tall right on top of the hidden boss's evaporating corpse. Checkmate. Mission flawlessly accomplished. In another quadrant, his teammate Yi Jiao instantly spotted the global alert. 100% positive she knew who pulled off the impossible. That was definitely Su Ming, she announced proudly. The guy absolutely steamrolled it. Meanwhile, in the real world, the update hit the spectator zone like a tactical nuke. The very microsecond the final monster vanished, the teleportation gate inside the command center ignited with blinding light, exploding right before the widened eyes of Director Wang and the top brass of the other rival schools. Then the victory banner materialized. One headmaster gasped, "Wait, did Li Chen Wang actually pull off the impossible?" While another firmly bet their life that Donglin snatched the win. The third dude doubled down, swearing it had to be Nangang. Wang whipped around, his eyes locking onto the massive leaderboard. When his academy's name flashed on the screen in blinding neon, his jaw practically unhinged. Cut back to the dungeon where Yi Jiao practically tackled Su Ming, losing her mind over that absolute god-tier play. Right on cue, Su Ming's stats went supernova. He blasted straight to level 16, skipping 2 entire tiers in a flash. The system immediately chimed in, flashing a massive congratulations banner across his vision. The rest of the crew swarmed him, still riding the adrenaline high. Su Ming flagged them down. "Bring it in fast. We gotta divvy up this hidden boss drop before the exit gate boots us out." Yanxi immediately backed off, shaking his head. "Nah, keep the gear, man. That massive XP carry is a reward in itself." Yan Yuning chimed in, endlessly thanking Su Ming for clutching up and saving her life. Yi Jiao just watched the awkward standoff as Yan Shi kept dumping his heart out. "Bro, you shielded us from Li Chen Wang's psycho attack, and then you straight up soloed the hidden boss. I was absolute dead weight out there. I completely choked. If I took even a scrap of that loot, the guilt would eat me alive." But right in the middle of his tragic monologue, a massive alert slammed into his HUD. The captain had just shoved the wrought siphon bow right into his inventory, a busted level 20 weapon meant for elite marksmen. Its passive is insane. It completely drains spiritual energy to inject a chaotic randomized magic buff into every single shot. A split second later, Yan Yunong's interface beeped. The captain tossed her the Soul Heart necklace, an artifact that heavily spikes mana reserves and supercharges energy regeneration. Absolute endgame drip for a spiritual healer. And Yi Jiao definitely didn't get ghosted either. Su Ming flicked a rare summoning scroll right into her hands. The Blood-Armored Undead. Once she unlocks this spell, she can literally spawn the exact hidden boss they just nuked. The terrifying Blood-Armored Undead Knight. Its stats scale infinitely off the user's own base power. Catching their shell-shocked expressions, Su Ming just flashed a smirk. Relax, this gear is heavily class-locked. It's literally hardwired for your specific builds. The system tracked your aggro. The dungeon officially counts you as the squad that shredded that boss. I didn't carry this alone. If you guys hadn't held the line, we'd all be wiped. He delivered it cold and straight, a pure, unfiltered fact, not some cheap hype-up. Without warning, a robotic AI voice shattered the silence, echoing a server-wide, "Congratulations for surviving the F-rank nightmare, Furious Tide Forest." Their final speedrun time, exactly 8 hours and 20 minutes. Hearing the server ping, Su-ming threw up a hand signal. "Clock's out, let's ghost." A massive dimensional rift tore open behind them. Strolling into the glowing void, he dropped some final knowledge. Every time you beat a zone, you trigger the final payout phase. Bonus MVP rewards don't hit our accounts until we physically cross back to the real world. The second we step through, a solo extraction gate spawns for anyone who didn't get flatlined. Flashing one last arrogant grin, he signed off, "GG team. No casualties today, absolute dub." Fast forward to later that afternoon, exactly at 4:30. The extraction rift began to violently ripple, vomiting students out onto the pavement one by one. The staff scrambled frantically to run a head count, but the atmosphere was suffocating. It was a pure trauma dump. You had kids crawling out covered in their own blood, while others walked out without a scratch, but staring completely through you, mentally broken. Bawling their eyes out, they were forced to watch their day ones and siblings get literally deleted inside the trial. One kid, fighting back violent sobs, dropped a horrifying reality check. Class 5 was entirely wiped from the map, with maybe 10 survivors making it back alive. Su-ming's crew just stood there paralyzed as the absolute chaos unraveled around them. Yanshi's voice completely cracked. He confessed that his original squad got totally slaughtered. He was the only one left breathing. Yijiao slowly nodded, her eyes dead and hollow. She was trapped in that exact same nightmare. Her previous squad was nothing but ash. Zhang Yuning quietly confirmed it was the exact same story for him. The second those words drop, Su-ming's face locks into pure ice. It hits him hard. The awakening wasn't just a massive server update. It completely glitched out reality. They're stuck in an awakened dystopia now. A brutal food chain where only the absolute apex predators survive. Total zero-sum game. If you want to keep breathing under this twisted new meta, you gotta grind through the absolute nightmare fuel. And scale your levels until you're straight up god tier. Right now, the vibe out in the plaza is totally whiplash. Half the courtyard is just a sea of sobbing kids completely shattered over their fallen squad mate, while the rest are absolutely buzzing on adrenaline, showing off their sick new skills and sorting through their rare drops. It's a wildly unhinged fever dream scenario. Out of nowhere, the principal's face glitches onto the jumbotron like a massive Twitch stream. He actually hypes up the survivors for clearing the tutorial zone. But then he totally drops the hammer. That wasn't just a basic raid, it was their ultimate trial, the absolute final exam before getting pushed out into the real deal. He looks dead into the camera, spitting straight facts. Awakening isn't just a golden ticket to chase clout, secure the bag, and live like royalty. It carries insane weight. It's about protecting your own, finding humanity, and holding the line. He orders the crying students to let that raw grief burn into their souls, and shoots a massive reality check to the hype beasts. Every ounce of power carries a terrifyingly steep karmic toll. Lock in or get out of the way. A suffocating dead silence washes over the plaza. Yijiao side-eyes Su-ming. "Are you hurting right now or hyped?" she whispers. Her eyes locked on the devastating casualty list. Su-ming just exhales, his voice barely a ghost of a sound. "They're coming back!" And perfectly on beat, the principal's mic cracks open again. He genuinely hopes every single one of them discovered what they're actually made of during that bloodbath, because that was the hidden agenda behind this whole nightmare tutorial. Then he straight up drops a nuke. Every single kid who got wiped out. They are respawning in exactly 30 minutes. The entire courtyard freezes, pin drop silent. It's pure unadulterated shock. Literally no one buys it, but the boss stands on business. They are teleporting out of the instance right now. Yijiao snaps her head towards Su-ming, staring at him like he just grew a second head. How in the world did he predict that smash cut to the principal's back room? He is obsessively swiping through the massive raid data. The instance records are officially sealed, which means it is payout o'clock. Player tags start flashing across the massive holographic display. Li Guang hits the board first, flaunting his total frags. Right after Song Kui's tag lights up with his own execution streak. Depending on how insanely they sweat during the raid, they're heavily cashing out on adventurer tokens. A massive wave of tags scrolls past. Every single survivor is securing the bag directly tied to their hustle. But then, Su-ming's banner detonates onto the monitor, and his kill feed is completely unfathomably psychotic. Gray-backed timber wolves, mutated primates, trash-tier goblins, elite-tier goblin commanders, spiked fang monstrosities including the ultra-rare elite variants. The hit list is literally miles long. The madman actually soloed the secret boss. He absolutely smashed his class awakening quest and completely steamrolled through the entire Red Rock Cavern. Without catching a single scratch, he locked in the first clear achievement and snagged a flawless S-rank evaluation rating. Stack all those feats together, and the system crowns him with the absolute peak title Rookie King. We're talking a flat plus 15 to every single core stat, and a massive 10% multiplier on his skill mastery. Straight up game breaking. His overall damage contribution to the whole instance sits at an absurd 91%. He literally put the entire server on his back. Suddenly, the heavy oak door groans open. The principal doesn't even bother lifting his eyes. "You took your sweet time. Of course it's our boy Su Ming." The headmaster casually mentions that Su Ming totally swept both the academy and the entire regional leaderboards. Su Ming just gives a super careless shoulder shrug. "Slept through my alarm." The global level ladder suddenly projects into the air, claiming the absolute throne. Su Ming chilling at level 16. Sitting at a hard tie for silver are Shang Tan and Yan Shi, capped at level 12. Zhang Yuning claims bronze at a flat level 11. Yi Jiao secures 4th place, maxing out at level 10. 5th goes to Li Kahan at level 8. And holding down 6th is Shang Xiaoyang, crawling in at level 7. The power difference isn't just a gap, it's a literal canyon. Staring at those crazy metrics, it fully clicks for Su Ming. The kid gloves are officially off. Vanilla high school life is permanently deleted. No more acting like an NPC. No more playing stealth mode. Because from this exact second forward, the sheer scale of power between him and the rest of the student body is on completely different planets. Right at that epic realization, Su Ming glances down. The highly respected principal is literally death-gripping his thigh, weeping like an absolute toddler. He awkwardly asks how long the old man plans on hugging his leg, but the boss is way too busy bawling his eyes out with pure relief to even register the question. He is practically worshipping the kid, blubbering that no matter what insane broken exploits Su Ming pulled off, he single-handedly dragged Shuangjing Academy's fading legacy out of the absolute gutter. For years, their academy had been the ultimate punching bag on the leaderboards, but right now the stubborn headmaster over at Bayan Academy was practically choking on his own words. The guy spent every single alliance meeting dragging their name through the mud, but Su Ming just permanently shut him up. Their underdog school was currently sitting comfortably at rank 1, across the entire 4-city region, and Su Ming absolutely dominated the top spot in every single tutorial raid. Catching wind of the massive hype, Su Ming casually asked where Li Chenwan from Bayan Academy ended up placing. The director smirked, explaining that the hyped-up prodigy, the so-called sword freak, barely clawed his way to rank 3. Word on the street was, he ate a brutal combo mid-run, absolutely nuking his boss clear speed. Suddenly, the director's tone shifted entirely. He leaned in, pressing to know how Su Ming actually dismantled that secret boss. Even packing a 10-star innate talent, he was fundamentally a sword controller, a job class universally mocked for hitting like a wet noodle early game. On top of that, Su Ming grew up broke and absolutely didn't have the cash to swipe for pay-to-win artifacts. Yet he still managed to obliterate a boss light years above his weight class. In his entire career running this academy, the director had never witnessed a rookie this ridiculously broken. There was absolutely zero chance those basic newbie drops could pump out that kind of insane DPS. Su Ming instantly slapped on a fake humble mask, dodging the interrogation, by claiming the RNG gods just blessed him with god-tier skill drops. Hearing the word luck, the director raised a skeptical eyebrow, seriously questioning if the tutorial loot tables were actually that incredibly busted. Su Ming smoothly added that his party's gear carried him hard, and honestly, without his squad backing him up, he would have been wiped by that secret boss in seconds. Deep down, though, he obviously couldn't drop the massive bombshell that he was a literal regressor, casually smurfing on New Game Plus. The director just beamed with pride, declaring this proved Su Ming wasn't merely a combat prodigy, but a born tactical leader. He mentioned that the rest of the squad already snagged their top 5 loot bags earlier, and that Yi Jiao had been absolutely fangirling over him non-stop, swearing she witnessed his monstrous power up close. Su Ming shifted his weight, taking a small step forward, suddenly remembering she flooded his DMs that morning to hang out, but he literally left her on red. She was always acting like the squad's personal cheerleader. It was honestly a little cringe. Out of nowhere, the director launched a metallic token through the air, motioning for him to grab it. Su Ming pivoted and snatched it right out of the air, his pupils dilating, as he instantly recognized the legendary Sky Tower Assembly Pass. The director flashed a huge grin, explaining that since they utterly destroyed the competition, even the snobby vice mayor, who always treated Shuangjing Academy like absolute garbage, was forced to rip away quota spots from the elite schools and hand them straight to Su Ming's squad. This season they locked down exactly 5 golden tickets for Xu Ming, Yi Zhao, Yanji, Yan Yuning, and San Tong. The director opened his mouth to deliver a massive lore dump about how crucial this pass was, but Xu Ming instantly cut him off. He didn't need the noob tutorial. He knew exactly what was in his hand. Internally, he knew the Sky Tower Assembly was the ultimate holy grail for newly awakened rookies. Normally, right after surviving the tutorial zone, students officially graduated and were thrown straight into the brutal awakened society. Most scrubs ended up stuck farming trash-tier dungeons, playing it super safe. Sure, it was zero risk, but leveling up was agonizingly slow. But clutching a Sky Tower token, that was the absolute VIP fast track. The difficulty scaling was psychotic, but the drops were god tier, and the XP multipliers were absolutely off the charts. In his past life, fumbling this exact ticket right out of the gate meant he could literally never catch up to the top-ranking server whales. And constantly splitting garbage resources with a whole guild totally handicapped his growth. But this playthrough, this time was going to be completely different. He planned to min-max every single advantage and prep straight for the endgame. The director extended his hand for a firm shake, congratulating him on finally awakening and officially graduating from Shuangjing Academy. But then his voice dropped, delivering a chilling warning. The real world wouldn't hold his hand like the starter zone. There are 0 respawns out there. From here on out, you only get one single life. And every single clash is a literal gamble with your soul. Looking the undercover prodigy dead in the eye, he told him to step out into the chaos and forge absolute history. Su Ming flashed a confident grin, locked hands in a solid shake, and dropped a quick thanks. Cut to the bougie side of Shuangjing City, where Yan Yuning was just stepping through her front door. The second the lock clicked open, her dad was already there, pulling her into a massive bear hug. You could practically feel the guy's relief that his little girl survived that brutal dungeon run without a single scratch, not to mention snatching the number 3 spot at the academy. The proud dad pointed out that the muscle Yanlan hired looked totally legit. Chilling right next to them, Yan Yuning's older sister offered a soft smirk, fully owning up to the fact that her squad definitely didn't earn the clout this time. The real MVP was an awakened student named Su Ming, who put Yan Yuning on his back and absolutely carried the whole raid. Yan Yuning backed that up instantly. She broke it down, explaining how her sister's expensive mercs blundered straight into a massive monster ambush, leaving her literally seconds away from a game over in that death trap. The guy snatched her from the jaws of death, and he didn't just play the shield, he actually blessed her with top-tier skill, books, and god-level gear. He straight up power-leveled her and shredded through the dungeon right by her side. She hyped him up as an absolute menace of a challenger. Her sister jumped into the convo, revealing she had actually tried to scout Su Ming to be Yan Yuning's personal shadow before, but the negotiations went totally side, and he straight up rejected the bag even with an insane payout on the table. She was mind-blown that the universe somehow forced them to team up deep inside that danger zone. The dad massaged his temples, realizing both his daughters were hyping this random teammate up to the literal moon. Because of that, they had to find the absolute perfect window to show him some real heavy-duty respect. Riding that energy, he declared he absolutely had to meet this overpowered, awakened. Face to face, he barked an order at Yanlan to pull Su Ming's digits immediately, then declared a massive blowout bash to celebrate Yan Yuning, dominating the dungeon, swearing he'd book a Michelin star chef to cater the whole thing. But mid-flex his phone started blowing up. He swiped to answer, fully planning to blow off whoever it was and scrap his schedule. But the exact millisecond the voice hit his ear, all the color drained from his face. His tone turned up. The caller laid out a brutal reality check over the past 48 hours. An unknown force had dropped hit squads to take out key targets inside their syndicate. He roared into the mic, demanding to know who was running the op. The answer hit like a freight train. It was the Sang bloodline. Fast forward 48 hours, Su Ming's phone lit up with a call from Yi Yao, dropping a heavy reminder that they were deploying to the Sky Tower realm today. She basically threatened him not to pull his usual solo leveling nonsense this time. Su Ming calmly told her he was fully locked in, having spent the last 2 days stacking up his prep work, and promised to rendezvous with the squad real soon. Yi Yao confirmed they were holding position. Clicking his phone off, Su Ming ran through the director's cheat sheet in his head on how to rip open the warp gate. To crash the Sky Tower summit, he just needed to channel his token to tear a hole in space, forging a high-tech gateway that would only let verified VIPs step through. Getting right to business, he pulled the heavy token and hoisted it into the air. The moment it fired up, a glowing rift violently tore open right in front of him, instantly backed up by a system chime verifying his elite status. Staring into that swirling void gave him a hit of pure dopamine. He stepped through the event horizon, his mind already calculating the insane new grind waiting for him in the sky tower. Bam! The camera cut straight to the drop zone. Su Ming materialized out of the warps, tilting his head back to take in the absolute behemoth of a structure. This was it, the legendary 100-floor gauntlet, the beating heart of the entire summit. A cocky grin stretched across his face as a flashback hit him. In his past timeline, he had only unlocked this zone way too late in the game when the meta was already dead. But now he stood at the starting line watching as top-tier players from every corner of the country, gripping their own entry passes, spawned into the hub one by one, all sweating to speedrun this monolith. His adrenaline spiked. Ready to make history, he swiftly scanned his token at the gate. A digital prompt flashed in his UI, locking in his identity as Su Ming. The gargantuan steel doors groaned open, but the second he took a look at the interior lobby, he was genuinely shook by what he saw. A system prompt suddenly flashed before his eyes, ordering him to hold his horses for the opening ceremony down in the main lobby, the mandatory drop zone for every single fresh face. Su Ming strolled inside, his eyes sweeping the massive architecture. It hit him instantly. This place was, compared to his previous timeline, the scale of this joint was absolutely colossal. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice hollered his name. He whipped around to spot Yi Yao, Yan Shi, and Yan Yuning. Smirking, he teased them for beating the clock. Yi Yao rolled her eyes, groaning that they had been standing there for ages. She called him out, frustrated that he always goes lone wolf instead of rolling with the crew. Su Ming just shrugged, pointing out he arrived right on schedule. Yi Yao clapped back, declaring they were practically a ride-or-die squad now. She passionately explained that after surviving that first nightmare dungeon together, they were permanently forged as trauma-bonded war buddies. She reminded him that their tiny squad was the absolute only surviving roster from Shuangjing Academy to actually secure a golden ticket to the Ski Tower Summit, so sticking together was non-negotiable before the next disaster struck. But mid-rant, a gritty voice sliced through the chatter, demanding to know if he was just totally invisible to them. Without missing a beat, Santong lunged aggressively at Su Ming, aiming a vicious right hook at his face while howling to stop icing him out. Su Ming casually sidestepped the strike like an absolute ghost. The entire lobby instantly froze, hundreds of eyes locking onto the drama. Murmurs ripped through the room. The tension skyrocketed as bystanders exchanged shocked glances. Who in their right mind would spark a turf war in the safe zone? Utterly baffled, Yi Yao glared at the attacker and snapped, "Dude, what is your literal problem?" But Santong was done talking. He manifested his heavy blade, the cold steel radiating pure hostility. "I am here to make you pay in blood for Xiaoming," he snarled, stepping forward with pure venom in his eyes. "You ditched us to die in that tutorial stage. You literally hid in the shadows like a pathetic rat." The audience gasped, panic rippling through the massive hall as the lethal weapon caught the light. This lunatic was moments away from catching a body. Yi Yao stepped forward, throwing her hands up. "Hold up! How is Xiaoming dragged into this mess?" But the angry swordsman straight up ignored her existence. "I genuinely did not expect trash like you to actually score a spot in the Sky Tower," he scoffed. "But whatever this just means, I get to permanently delete your account right now." Su Ming remained totally unfazed. Voice smooth as ice, he retorted, "Take a breath, dude. My beef with Xiaoming is a whole separate layered situation." Before another word dropped, a deafening mechanical siren echoed from above, rattling the foundations. Alert. Hostility registered. A sly smirk crept onto Su Ming's face as he glanced up. Probably the dumbest possible arena to pick a fight, huh? And in a fraction of a heartbeat, boom! A devastating pillar of blue electricity crashed through the ceiling, obliterating Santong with enough kinetic energy to level a truck. He face-planted onto the marble floor. A glowing red hologram materialized out of thin air, broadcasting the rules. Any violent behavior, violating the safe zone protocols, carries an absolute zero-tolerance policy. Smoking and paralyzed on the tiles, Santong shot a venomous glare upward. "Do not think you are off the hook for this," he choked out. "Mark my words, I'm coming for you." Su Ming merely flashed an arrogant grin. "Better watch your mouth," he taunted. "The system is still listening. We will finish this little dance after the main quest drops, all right?" The spectators quickly dissolved, realizing the free entertainment was cooked. Hushed whispers echoed. As everyone processed that, despite the lack of physical security guards, the overlords were watching every single pixel. "This orientation is definitely not just a walk in the park," a random player muttered. Meanwhile, lingering in the shadows, an enigmatic crimson-haired guy with razor-sharp eyes mentally noted the chaos before melting into the background. Su Ming flicked a hand toward his team. "Let us roll, we are heading upstairs." Yi Yao blinked, totally baffled. "Upstairs? The event literally has not even started yet. Are we not supposed to review the welcome packet?" or just chill for a second over by the impact crater. A couple of random bystanders finally hurried over to peel the toasted swordsman off the ground. "Drag this guy to the medbay now," someone hollered, as they frantically cleared out the smoking rubble. Unbothered, Su Ming kept his effortless swagger going. He shot a quick look back at his squad. Forget waiting in line, reading the tutorial is straight-up NPC behavior. The actual glitch in the Matrix is literally hardwired into the seating chart. Yao's jaw practically hit the floor. "Bro, isn't this your first playthrough too? How the heck are you so tapped in?" Su Ming just threw him a knowing wink. "Sit tight and take notes. We just gotta post up right here and keep our mouths shut for a hot minute." A few seconds later, the space around them literally warped. A glowing system panel sparked to life, hovering directly over their chosen seats. Jackpot. Su Ming flashed a devilish, "Welcome to the Sky Tower's ultra-secret command hub." Yao gaped at the glowing text, completely mind-blown. "Seriously, words are failing me right now. Our main guy is out here exploiting hidden glitches that haven't even dropped in the official patch notes yet." Out of nowhere, a server-wide broadcast blasts through the zone. The Sky Tower initiation is now live. It is a savage 100-story meat grinder. While the rest of the server stands around totally paralyzed and clueless, Su Ming locks onto the interface, absolutely unfazed, operating on pure speedrunner instincts. Catching on the loaded healer, frantically waves the archer over to grab a chair, instantly clocking that these recliners are the actual VIP passes to the raid. Our absolute unit of a protagonist starts analyzing the rule set. This is a ruthless vertical sprint. Push further up the spire, and your endgame status hits legendary tiers. Any deadlocks, they get shattered by raw velocity and mechanical prowess. The leading lady pieces it together in this arena. Every single microsecond is a matter of life or death, or more accurately, massive points. Then Su Ming drops an absolute nuke. This whole opening ceremony, a gigantic bait. It is a psychological filter. Sitting around for the tutorial speech is pure cannon fodder behavior. Top-tier players kick off their climb immediately. The architects built this to filter out the sheep and reward anyone galaxy-brained enough to uncover the hidden back door. Su Ming tosses his crew an invite for another hard carry. He wants to know if they are ready to run it back, just like their tutorial raid. The healer does not hesitate. She is desperate for that premium VIP protection, confessing that despite her family's bottomless bank account, a teammate this absurdly overpowered is basically a unicorn. But plot twist. The archer actually rejects the party invite, declaring he is dropping into this zone entirely solo. The healer's brain short circuits. Like, what kind of lunatic rejects a free ride to the finish line? He breaks it down during the last raid. Su Ming literally soloed the entire map, leaving them basically AFK on the sidelines. He is totally sick of being dead weight and hiding behind an overpowered shield. It is time for him to grind his own XP and get his hands dirty. Our girl locks eyes with him, completely respecting the hustle. They need a hardcore reality check to figure out if they actually have. Forget being glorified backpack material. She pitches a new game plan. The three of them squad up together, cutting Su Ming loose to dominate the leaderboards alone. The healer instantly starts sweating at the thought of doing actual work, but our leading lady slaps her with a hardcore take it or leave it ultimatum.